Here we go, here we go, here we go. We're gonna rock and roll towards the sun roundabout. Special July 10th, full moon edition, special full moon. It is the full moon special edition, marching, rock and rolling. I guess we're either gonna go towards the mountain. It is 33 degrees. I guess it feels a little bit on the hot side. Special heat wave, I guess. I guess it begins today, but it was supposed to begin tomorrow, and we're supposed to have gotten a storm, but there's no storm yet as we go. That's what we gotta get doing on that rock and roll for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, and firefighters, plumbers, electricians, the welders. All the time for the firefighters and the truckers on the road, the nurses, the daycare workers changing some diapers. For the Democratic Imperial Republic, support the dream, the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, which is fundamentally my dream for a PPP. And I gotta give some salutations to those who are gonna pick up the compost. I see that big trucks. There's a lot of labor, a lot of love, and I worked on the compost in 2018 when it was introduced for like 4 months or so, and I guess that was one of my good long jobs because, I have Asperger's, and due to Asperger's, it is more difficult for people like myself or neurodivergent to keep a long-term employment due to this neurological mental divergent condition. Would make us predisposed to special interests and weird, awkward, odd, strange behavior when we interact with neurotypicals, and our way of communication and interactions can sometimes be on the odd side, but that is just what I gotta live with. Asperger's, being that I'm an Aspian artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical theorist, and gotta salute those bus drivers 24/7 and encouraging all to work out, train, exercise. I was a bit moody. I gotta say, and that moodiness, made me that I was, of course, predisposed to. But now I feel good, I was just moody. I'm no longer depressed and suicidal. I was there, but I'm no longer, of course, depressed. That was something that I lived, and I'm just gonna hydrate because it's super hot. And we're gonna get on that hydration, and that's what we're gonna do here. We're gonna wait. Usually I wait about 10 seconds, 20 seconds, to get it clear, because sometimes the pipes, they got the rust. Since they got rust underneath, the rust can be, of course, a bit dangerous for the bodily functions if you ingest it in a quantity that is proportional, of course, but it can be dangerous. So just a few seconds. I gotta give gratitude to the public workers who built this so I can hydrate. And yeah, it is hot. It is hot. HOT. Oh yeah. Best point towards the sun. Guess you had enough of my face. Rock and roll for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors. Here we go in another. Gotta watch when you cross the street here. This is 2 lanes. Sometimes they come fast, so gotta get it on the go, and gotta get it for those who are on the road now. And it's always for the firefighters, always for the butchers, always for the plumbers, for the electricians, for the daycare workers changing diapers, those distributing some food, and those taking a rest, my cousins, brothers and sisters here across the empire, the 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories which we're gonna merge, is something which we gotta be implementation about. And of course it's consequentially on that prudent thing, and gotta get it for the left, for the right, and right in the middle. Sometimes it's just seizing the day and beginning your fitness journey today. As I always say, I always begin my fitness journey today. I actually began my fitness journey post 2017. Prior to that date, I was depressed, I was suicidal, and that was really something which completely changed my life. Crossing Canada coast to coast, that is that event. Crossing Canada coast to coast in 2017. That event really changed my whole life. I went in Vancouver, BC. In August, it's going to be 8 years in next month, and in September 2017 I went to Halifax, BC, Nova Scotia, so made it coast to coast, ocean to ocean in that 2017. And prior to that date I was depressed, I was suicidal, and unfortunately high depression rates and suicidal tendencies and ideation is really prevalent among the neurodivergent communities like myself who have Asperger's. And this is empty. I wish I could get a dime and fill it up one day. Oh, it's not that empty. Oh, nice. Somebody put some spinach, put some leeks, and with some crunchy greens. I guess I'm gonna leave it for somebody else. I'm just gonna, oh, this is frozen though, so for somebody else. This time I'm gonna leave it for somebody else, but you can do a lot of cooking there, and it's always something which is good to have in the neighborhood. You know, you have some cans here. Let's see what you got. You got some cream style corn, and cream style corn. Oh, you got more cream style corn. So I guess I'm gonna take just one for myself and one for my friend. One and leave 4 there. Gonna leave 4, and yeah, that's about it for that. Gonna eat some cream style corn over the weekend. Gonna make a salad with them. But grateful, thankful, thank you, farmers. You know, I appreciate this donation here, you know. So I'm just gonna take one for me, one for my anonymous friend. I wanted to take 2 for me, 2 for her, but I guess 1 and 1 and leave 4. Let's check the expiry date, best before date. And I changed this one, best before date, and whatever the case may be, best before date, and whatever the case, let's see, best before, and that's all we got, and that's all we gotta get drilling here, you know. So now I got a little heavier. I guess I'm gonna add to my workout training exercise. And should we go by the river? Said yes. That was the answer for the honk, I guess, by the river, towards the river. Okay, let's do that then, but let's do a special by the river. I guess we can do it in different ways to reach the river, you know. So many different ways, but the best way, of course, would be for me to start heading towards the river, and that is gonna be heading. Here it is, beautiful sky, Montreal, Hawk Island, HAWK. Got the raincoat in case it was supposed to be a stormy, thunderous. Maybe it's gonna come out of nowhere. It's supposed to be around 3, but I guess it was delayed by a few hours. It was actually supposed to be way earlier than 3, but then I gotta get postponed with that because Mother Nature, you know, has got her ways and got her whims, and that's something which, of course, we cannot really control, you know, as we go on the blessings and on the left and on the right and in the middle, and sometimes we just gotta rock and roll with it as things which we have and which we go, and sometimes we just gotta start our own fitness journey, as I have been on a fitness journey since 2017. You know, that fitness journey, of course, for me, of course, was a tough one. I began being depressed, being suicidal 2017 before that, and you know, this is July 10th special full moon edition, so I guess we can go by the mountain or by the river. Still haven't decided yet. Maybe I am gonna clock it in towards the mountain instead, but we went yesterday. If not, we got this 3-day full moon special edition, and you know, today it begins now. Full moon, it lasts 3 days until Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's 3 days of the full moon, you know. So that is 3 days of the full moon, and that's what we gotta get consequently, and it's something which we have to always be considerate about. Myself as a mystic, I guess, more considerate than others, because I gotta say this is a special God bless, and God has kissed the Empire. This is a special God bless, and God has kissed the Empire Imperial March for the creation of the Dragon Army, aka North American Collective, SSD Legion, which I have been and will continue to advocate the creation thereof via my Trinity or theories, and especially my philosophies. The new 911 Dragon Total SSD security service and defense implementation thereof, and of course to be on the unity of Canada and United States into this fundamental 21st century political social dynamic complex. So yours truly here from Metropolis, Hawk Island, Montreal, encouraging all to work out, train, exercise like I aforementioned before. My, of course, fitness journey began in 2017 and that's all we have to be doing, you know, 2017 to that. It's almost 8 years since I crossed Canada coast to coast. That eventually changed my whole life with that. And before that, I was depressed and I was suicidal, you know. I was depressed and suicidal, and prior to that date, I was depressed, I was suicidal, and that really changed my whole life. So I started writing a paper, documents, of course, which is calling, and I'm calling, of course, continuously for the mass financing, inter-North American mass financing of tourism, for establishing general overall wellness and an esprit de corps, because when I crossed Canada coast to coast, that really helped me and got out of my depression. I had like a revelation. I had a realization when I crossed the prairies and Banff and switched buses, because I went from Montreal to Vancouver in August 2017 by bus, and that event was really a major turning point in my life. I guess I started over a few times, I guess. A few times, I guess I can start over now. My only stress is financial, you know. My only stress now really is financial, and I guess I've been through hell and back. I survived COVID, and crossing Canada coast to coast really changed my whole life, you know. Really changed my whole life. And before that I was depressed and suicidal, and there's somebody who has Aspie. In a parallel life I also have Asperger's, which is not a mental illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition, and of course makes you predisposed to those special interests, and that's what we have to be doing to explain a little bit what Asperger's is, what is not. Of course, in a parallel life I also have Asperger's, and I also have special interests, and those special interests are science, computers, technology, and everything to do with physics and mathematics, and I know everything there is to know about that tower. I guess it got some 3G, 4G, 5G implemented, maybe 4G and 5G in it, and of course that's what I do. I build supercomputers, satellites, satellites, microchips, and coding, and everything to do with technology and science in a parallel life. Although in this life I'm an Aspie, just like in that parallel life, and my special interest, also known as obsessive interest in this life, is of course geopolitics, 24/7, sports and fitness. Dancing being my favorite sport, and fitness, and rock and roll. That's my holy trinity. If you don't know about Asperger's, just check it out and write on Google Asperger's special interest, and you're gonna know what I'm discussing about. And I gotta give a shout out before I proceed in discussing Asperger's. Special friend, who was my friend because of the money, who gifted me a book, of course, which was called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. And appreciating Asperger's syndrome is of course something which I have to be doing with that. So appreciating Asperger's syndrome is something which Appreciating Asperger's syndrome is a book which I strongly recommend, of course, being that I strongly recommend, you know, something which I strongly recommend to all Aspies and non-Aspies alike, fellow neurodivergent community, to read if you want to know more about it. And that's a great book which made me, of course, discover my difference, and sometimes I can be open to vulnerabilities, and open to certain vulnerabilities, and open to certain discriminations or things of that nature which we're not fully aware of. Because Asperger's, we lack certain social skills, social knowledge, understanding of non-written social dynamics. And we are average, so mediocre in certain social convention, unwritten social rules. You know, it can be very difficult for us to of course understand and process the non-written verbal communications and unwritten social rules, and thus we have a tendency to lack and not be so able, be mediocre, be average, be so when it comes to those social interactions and things of that nature. If I can give you an example, and things such as gossip, I never bought a gossip tabloid or gossip things in my life, and I don't understand fully why some people just are immersed about people's personal lives. I guess if I relate to somebody who, as an artist, an artistic perspective, rock and roll, but I don't really know much about their private lives. For example, I like rock and roll and I like Ozzy. The only thing I really know about Ozzy's private life is that he was married for more than 44 years. 45, close to 45 years, gotta double check, but for more than 44 for sure. So I read last time, more than 45 years with Sharon, and I guess in the rock and roll business, and of course that community specifically, long-term marriages like that are something which is more rare. But nonetheless, just to explain a little bit of the dynamics of how our mental processes, which are divergent, different from the neurotypical population, how they're different, and of course how we can sometimes stumble and not understand certain consequences of certain social interactions. It's not by volition, it's not something that's willed, it's something that the processes of the brains have trouble to fully understand and implement. That's why I always have to work on certain characteristics, because of course it's not symptoms. Symptoms, of course, is for a mental illness. So of course symptoms is for a mental illness, and symptoms are for a mental illness or something, but that is either of a symptom like a physical malady or a psychological malady, while of course Asperger's is neither. Asperger's is a neurological mental divergent condition. It's not a mental illness, but definitely in certain things we are less able, mediocre, so-so, and average, and of course we are not that good because our brains, Aspie brain, my brain, and Aspie brains, and keep in mind that my Asperger's community, fellow Aspies, we are less than 1%. It's not even a half of a percentage. It's not even 0.44. 0.44%. So think about it, how small the community is. So that is basically a small community of citizens who have Asperger's in the world. And that is just our brains have these mutations. And due to these mutations, of course, they're not visible outwardly on the cranium or the cranial sphere, but of course, they're internal at the micro level. Think about it as microchips, like 4 microchips, tiny microchips, right? They're so tiny, the microchips, but they nonetheless have a function. They can change, the microchips can change the whole structure of the whole, whether the computer, or the phone, the smartphones. So that is something which of course I always like to be aware consequently and prudently about what Asperger's is and what Asperger's is not. So that is something which I got to be aware of and have to be aware of in the circumstantial things which of course I am involved in doing with the left or right and Z, and that's something which I gotta be explaining as much as I can, because of course as much as you can explain Asperger's, you can just pinpoint certain characteristics, again not symptoms, and how it is consequential to how we interact with the world, and certain things we just do not understand. Our understanding and is skewed because of this Asperger's that we deal with, this aspiness, and because of these mutations of the brain, which of course cannot be medicated. You cannot medicate Asperger's. It's a lifelong condition, and of course the causes are inconclusive. There's no really final conclusion as to what causes Asperger's, right? It's either a mixture of hereditary, genetic, biological, that is, and of course a mixture of biology, hereditary characteristics, or it's a environmental causes. So both multi-factors can cause Asperger's, right? It could be hereditary biological, or it could be of course a mixture of course both. And of course that's what we got. So it's something which we have to be doing on the go, and that's what we have to be doing on the left and on the right, you know. So something which we have to be doing on the do and doing on the left and doing on the right, you know. So that's what we have to be doing. No. That's good. That's all we got, and that's what we live with, you know. That's what we live with, and that's what we live with. That's beautiful, beautiful. And yes, you know, I'm also part of the LGBTQ community, 50-50 androgynous, pansexual, so if you want to make some good loving, you know, just consent, hygiene, and I'm not really looking, I have a And okay, I'm not really looking for anything romantic. I'm gonna propose again to an old friend, but probably gonna get a no again. I'm gonna do like Joe Biden, propose, and I'll get a no a few times, I guess, until I get a yes, maybe. So consequently, whatever the case may be, just to finalize on Asperger's, it's not an illness, It's not an illness. It's not an illness. It's not an illness, It's not an illness. You have to be careful here, guys, just be careful that there's people, so just don't race. Don't race. Just don't race here with the bikes like that. Sometimes just children there, Don't go too fast. There's places for that, where more safety, because here at the bowling there could be children, Children are innocent, safe, And the other day, because when my friend came out of here Saturday, we were walking by there, and the children were chasing a white squirrel. They were chasing a white squirrel, and they came to here, so I was just consequent in thinking that it's not the place to race, because there's the bowling arena. There's a bowling arena, so just be mindful that if you go with the bikes there, I know it's summer, you want to love a little bit that bike, not a problem, but just think about certain security dimensions for self and for another, As an independent philosopher, they weren't going that fast, I gotta say. It's okay, but just think about that. Don't race, because just the other day I saw there were young youth chasing a squirrel they were playing, so just drive slow, It's not a place to race. Please, just a nice little citizen-friendly dictum from this Aspie philosopher, artist, athlete, and North American Quebecer Canadian who was born in the United States 3 times post 1776, and I'm also a mystic. I believe in reincarnations, just like George Patton. You gotta read through that. Through a Glass Darkly, one of my favorite poems by George Patton. It's called Through a Glass Darkly, and there George Patton espouses his belief in reincarnation, just like I believe in reincarnations, of course. And if you pass by here, please do not pollute. Don't leave trash, garbage, plastic cans, anything like that, because we're trying to clean here and preserve as much as we can. And I love nature, and I love civilization. I love the big city, and I love nature. As I go yesterday, I went at, of course, the mountain. I guess I decided today to go by the river, because this week I haven't been by the river, because Monday, of course, we did a special one, and Tuesday did a special city march, because I went to see Ballerina. Very good. I got to see it again. Very good. By the way, I'm calling for whatever the gross domestic and the 1%, whatever they paid the actors, and whatever they're gonna make money with the movie Ballerina, and all movies this week, all the gross movies of Canada and United States, 1% to be given to Texas relief efforts. 1% to be given to Texas relief efforts. 1% to be given for the Texas relief efforts. 1% to be given for Texas relief efforts. That's my call, because I'm calling for the fusion of Canada and United States my way best. Now we have the Trump tariffs, and nothing personal. I'm Democratic Republican centrist, pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist, and have been them and will challenge Donald Trump to fight me in a boxing match on the Canadian-US border, and I have been challenging Donald Trump to fight me on the Canadian-US border ever since 2018, when Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. First time Donald Trump imposed 10% tariffs, and now we have an ongoing trade war, and that's a mistake. Because Aspies, we have special interest, and my special interest, also known as obsessive interest, is geopolitics. And it is 24/7 geopolitics, the analysis of geopolitics 24/7, and I'm a independent geopolitical analyst and theorist and strategist. You hear those birds? Hear those birds? Look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? It's a bit like that jungle. It could be like that jungle. We have a special type of Montreal jungle forests here. You know? Whoop. My hat fell down as I was going up, and I gotta tie my belt again because when I went through that slope, it popped off. So give me a 44 seconds. Put the belt back. And that is a beautiful weeping willow. Does that go? That's a nice one, eh? Weeping willow. So here we go. So just to state, of course, that it's a Dragon versus Trump special edition, special full moon edition. It began now, full moon beginning now. 3-day journey, right? I'm gonna work out, train, exercise. I did some laundry. Gotta be grateful, thankful for the laundry machine. Thank you to my anonymous friend. If I make $1 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion, I'm gonna give half. And I'm wealthy, rich, affluent. I'm red in the broken, the financial, monetary wise, but I'm very rich, affluent, and wealthy in geopolitics, sports, fitness, and rock and roll, you know, and cadence. And yours truly, have been and will continue to challenge Donald Trump. And let's build a fort together on the Canadian-US border. Let's build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. Caesar Superdome was, of course, Caesar Superdome was used to be known as the Mercedes-Benz Arena, and before that it was used to be known as the Louisiana Dome, where my 49ers lost to the Ravens. Super Bowl 47, aka Hardball Ball, aka Bro Bowl, aka Blackout Ball. One of my favorite Super Bowls, top 5 Super Bowls, although personally I don't remember that Super Bowl because I got retrograde amnesia, memory loss. You know, I have trouble accessing my life prior to like spring 2014. I remember best 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And then if I go back a little bit more, then it's kind of on the blackout things, and that's how we got, and that's how we gotta get doing on that, you know, on the blackouts of memory. And I was attacked by surprise, you know, and that's why I don't like violence myself. I am hyper vigilant. I just don't like violence. I have plenty of scars. I can be intense, concentrated, super focused due to my aspiness. Aspies, we can be very intense, very focused, very concentrated, because you have to realize that most of our minds and our daily activities, they're super intense, or can be, for different aspies. I'm myself part of this tiny community which constitutes less than 0.5%, so there's not a lot of people even know what Asperger's is. But of course the consequential matters is that, of course, Asperger's is the neurological mental divergent condition which makes me who I am. And look at those beauties. And of course, you have to understand that most of our daily habits are following a routine, ritual-like routines. When most of our, hey, look at the bees. What is bees there, Sonny? Isn't this beautiful? Gorgeous. When Mother Nature kind of looks like the COVID, eh? Like what it was depicted, the coronavirus. Exactly like, oh, hey, there's a big one. Kisses, kisses from afar. Kind of looks like what the coronavirus was, but here you have berries. Now you're ready. They're not ripe. A few more weeks. Wild berries. Those are edible, but make sure, because not the red circular ones. Those other things are not. These red and white ones like this. The red ones that look like this. You also have white. These are white, and you have the red ones, right? So these are not edible. These are not edible. Don't eat these. Those are not berries, and the red ones are not berries. Now, of course, you have berries, but some are edible. You have to know how to distinguish them. So just to say on the Asperger's, of course, is not a mental illness, categorically not. We have these routines, and these routines are ritualized like routines which we can be very, usually they're mostly revolved around our special interest. Around our special interests. And those special interests, of course, preoccupy our daily habits and routines. Right? So they happen to be so intense, so super focused, so super concentrated that they take most of our time. Most of our time usually revolve around those special routines, right? Those special routines, and of course that's our special Asperger's routines is what something which we have to be doing on the go, so something which we have to be mindful of. On a constant basis as Aspies, we are prone, of course, to those routines. But not just prone to the fact like somebody, a neurotypical would understand it. Because you have to distinguish that we as Aspies, we always have to build bridges between myself as an Aspie, my fellow Aspie community, and of course fellow neurodivergents, of which Aspies we are, and neurotypicals. So don't see it from a neurotypical perspective as something that's negative or obsessive. But most of our days and routines specialize, and of course they happen to be as in related to our special interests, And those special interests and habits, of course, preoccupy our daily habits with intensity, super focus and super concentration. Right? So super focus and super concentration, right? As you can see here now, of course, I give you an example. Of course, my special interest is, of course, geopolitics. So now that I see, of course, this big train here, see? I know that it's going east. Right? So this train is going east, right? No. See? It's going east. So this train is going east. That's right. This train is going east, right? The train's going east. So of course, that I know. I don't know what's internally in it, but I know, of course, that consequently it can be carrying food or products or food, which of course can be of enormous importance for both Canada and the United States binationally. So my brain now switches immediately, it's automatic. Think of it in terms of like a software and AI of the brains, which of course the software and the AI are mostly prone in our brains towards our special interests. And of course those special interests preoccupy our daily habits, our daily routines, right? So of course the preoccupation of our daily habits and our daily routines is of course what makes us predisposed to those special interests where we are involved, dedicated with intensity, super focus, super dedication, and super concentration. So our whole life, our whole daily aspects of our lives are usually revolved in either working, studying, learning, or being engaged in those special interests. It varies from Aspie to Aspie. I'm an individual Aspie, citizen, androgynous pansexual artist, athlete, philosopher, and mystic with geopolitics as my special interest, and that's where I excel. That's where I excel. That's where I excel. That's where I excel. Right? That's where I excel. In geopolitics. In the world of geopolitics. And I know that now integrally and unitedly, those special interests are of course consequently related, and my brain switches to analyzing the geopolitics of course of that. The geopolitics of course of that special train. And that train of course is going. That train of course is going towards the east. I don't know what's carrying, but I know that it might be vital and open potentially to sabotage and espionage by foreign actors and influences and actors who, because we have involved ourselves in a military manner and we direct military, what I call the due to the DMA, direct military action, which this is my, you have to understand that I as an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, when I discuss things of a geopolitical nature, you have to kind of leave the baggage at the door and forget the pansexuality, that I am part of the LGBTQ, that I'm financially stressed, broke. Just focus on my intellectual, academic, and scholarly wisdom, understanding, and knowledge when it comes to geopolitics, right? And so my brain switches to analyzing from a geopolitical perspective, from a micro and the macro. For example, the micro could be the wellness of the fellow train conductors. Salutations, rock and roll I got for the train conductors, you know. Gotta cheer, love our train conductors of the empire of the 10, 50, and 3, which we're gonna merge, fuse together, because it's time for the Republic. The king is absent, and now pledging allegiance to the king that gotta go. It's the fellow 40 plus million Canadians, brothers and sisters here in Quebec. We made the great linguistic compromise in which we're gonna fuse and marry with our brothers and sisters in the United States. It's our common destiny together, you know, in the new collective civilizational complex, of which we are a new collective civilizational complex, of which we gotta fuse together and apply many of my theories and philosophies for the new 911 total collective integration, because 911 is for both the United States and Canada, in order to fuse for a total complex of total security, total service, total defense for the 21st century. And keep in mind that I say that these are my solutions, and keep in mind, super important to keep in mind and understand fully that I have been and am in a World War III mode type of alertness since 2019 in October, November, because I predicted, and I have proof of work, I predicted what's happening now, not as a seer or as a prophet, but as a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist and strategist. That's why I'm calling for all to support my bipolar strategy. Not bipolar, don't confuse bipolar with bipolarity as in a psychological condition. So it has nothing to do with a psychological psychiatric condition. It has everything to do with my bipolar strategy for the total dominance, benevolent dominance and dominion. BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion. BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion of the 21st century geopolitics and pacification thereof via the fusion of Canada and United States via my DRT, debt fusion theory, CIT, citizen integration theory, and DFT, democratic fusion theory, consequently in the creation of two public-private partnership institutions, the Dragon Army, aka North American Imperial Democratic Republic, SSD Legion for security, service, and defense, and the North American Integrated Dance League, the DGA, aka the DGA Dancing Goddess Army, the North American Integrated Dance League, which is gonna be starting today with me. Let's sign it tomorrow, the coming days, weeks, months, and preferably deadline on September 11th, preferably. And you know, I've written in my journal, I don't remember personally September 11th because I have trouble with memory. Not recent memory, I remember very good the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and after 10 it kind of goes blackout. As a matter of fact, I wasn't sure when I moved. Was it 2016 and 2015? It's possibly that it was 2015 in July 2015. July 2015 in July 2015. In July 2015. That it was in July 2015. And so that is the consequential matters at hand in July 2015. So that means that it's been 10 years this July. It's 10 years anniversary since I moved. So I remember like 2014-ish spring, and I used to live in a moldy place, you know, it was small prison-like type of cell. I guess I served my time. It's type of like prison cell in a small underground basement, and I was attacked by surprise, and I fell, hit my head, had a dislocated right shoulder and arm. I was bloodied up, and I went to the Jewish General Hospital. They cracked back my shoulder and arm, and I was put on some meds, put on some medications, and kind of had my own Cillian private episode. And that's, I have trouble remembering my life before, you know. I don't know if I was alcohol junkie or drug junkie. I don't know if I was a junkie or not, like because sometimes it's drug consumptions or alcoholic mass intake of alcohol can cause RA, retrograde amnesia, memory loss. It doesn't matter. What really matters is most of my work, which has happened since I moved, I went 2015, 2016, and especially since I got out of being depressed and suicidal, because the main three problems which Asperger's we face the main three problems which Aspies we face: a lack of friends. I don't really need it, friends, because I'm okay if, you know, I had a friend for years, and I guess whoever wants to be my friend, I don't want to just waste anybody's time. You know what to expect, and it's friends with benefits only. You know, I'm also part of the LGBTQ community, and it's friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only, you know. Friends with benefits only. Black, white, man or woman, you want to good loving. You got to be of age, though. I'm going to card you just like when you go get some of that liquor, some of that booze. Here in Canada, we legalized cannabis back in 2019, so I don't smoke much myself, but point is that you got to be of age if you want to love and do some good loving. I just craving some massage therapy session. Besides that, I'm okay. I'm not really in need of much, but friends with benefits would be a good complimentary, and if not, pledge your allegiance, Dar family, Dragon Zero, Priestess, General Priestess, HNH, keep my holy sacred name, Adrian Hana Dragon. Nobody's born a dragon rebirthing during this COVID. Out of your mouth, keep my name if it's not for a blessing. We got work to do. We got lots of locomotives to build for the Empire. Look at those locomotives. Those are probably from the what? 70s, 80s. I'm assuming. I don't think they're 90s, but I think they're mostly from the 70s, 80s, eh? More than 44 years, close to 50 maybe. We got a lot of work. We got a lot of work. Work, Arbeit. Paradoxically, the three problems for Aspies is the lack of friends, which again, for me, friends with benefits only, or pledge your allegiance, support my dream, the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom. And parallel to that is, of course, very high depression and suicidal rates. And I was depressed, I was suicidal. I was depressed, I was suicidal. Another one, which is totally unacceptable, another one which is totally unacceptable is the high unemployment rate. When I cough like this, I remember 2020 in February, between mid-February and March, when I was really sick. When I had COVID, it was like death, pestilence, and disease. Death, pestilence, and disease. It was like death, pestilence, and disease. When I had COVID, it was like death, pestilence, and disease. May it be on my knees. 11 times full, please. But I really thought I was gonna die, you know, during COVID. So I remember coughing and had the symptoms, but the word COVID was not yet in the news. I just, of course, I survived COVID. I thought I was gonna die, so I restarted when I moved. I restarted when I crossed Canada coast to coast. I restarted, I guess, every day with the sun rises, sun sets, midnight. And of course, back between mid-February and mid-March when I died during COVID, and distinguish between recycling, that's recycling, and that's garbage. So make sure you double check, please. So consequently, of course, having survived COVID, and I live every day carpe diem, you know, but I have, of course, hope, great hope for tomorrow, you know. I have great hope for tomorrow. I have great hope when I see the youth, when I see people holding hands and kissing and hugging, that always gives me some hope a little bit, because it's not all about the money, and it's not all about the money, when you want to serve and you want to do some good, but money serves a function. That's why I believe, my DRT theory best, the debt refusion theory best. So now that I see how my brain now switches, now that I'm of course close to the highways, I try to meditate of course on the truckers, because of course the truckers are valid, and of course we got to support them and rock and roll for them as I check out that beautiful clouds. They're majestic, but of course my brain now integrally switches, and I place my mental facilities and faculties to integrate it into the complex of the North American Collective, all the highways across the 10, the 50, and the 3, the 50 states, 10 provinces, 3 territories, and of course all the truckers, whatever they're carrying, cheeseburgers, cheese, milk, bread, butter, eggs, salt, sugar, beets. I love beets, that red beets. Not beets as in the music, but beets. And of course, sausages and creams and all the things which we buy, and all the things that are really essential, which is, I'm referring mostly to nutrition, because, I buy my clothing secondhand, and my anonymous friend gifted me some of the greatest clothes that I have even now. This one I'm wearing now, I had it for like 6 years, and Aspies, the problem is we kind of lack the fashion sense and all that. Sometimes Aspies can just totally ignore the fashions, and it just doesn't, our brains are wired differently, eh? So we know what we know, and we do what we do because of our special interests, where we're super focused, super intense, super concentrated, super involved and dedicated, such as now. I put that micro event, this fellow trucker, I hope he's doing well, and all the truckers, some are stressed because economically there's lots of stress and pressure for the truckers, and of course the prices are increasing and are keeping increasing, and I've been financially stressed. My only stress now is really financial, but I'm always open for work and business. The problem is for Aspies, it's unacceptable that 80%, 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10, 80 out of 100, that is totally unacceptable for the Asperger community to face such a high level of unemployment. So now my brain of course analyzes from the micro perspective, that is the wellness and the general joy and happiness, which of course can be related to geopolitics, overall geopolitics for the health of the individual, and of course with the macro level, that we are open for potential sabotage and espionage. And before I proceed with geopolitics, I want to give a salutation, and I love this orange flowers. You know me, I love yellow flowers. Red's my favorite color, but I also gotta love me some of these colorful flowers like this, so just gonna smell them a bit. What a beauty just to pass through here, It's just a beauty. Thank you, public workers. We got a mass embellishment to do, and I really appreciate the arbeit, the work, and Aspies, we suffer from the problem is many Aspies have many jobs. I had many jobs in the past 7 years, some 4 months, 3 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months probation, and then etc. The problem with Aspies is the high unemployment rate, way too high, and paradoxically we're a tiny minority, right? So there's not a lot of Aspies in the world, but the problem is the unemployment is super high, really unacceptable, 80%, 80, 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10. So consequently, it's 11 times higher than the 99.56%, the majority which you constitute the neurotypical population, of which you constitute the 99.56%. So keep that in mind as I gaze at my Pope, the King, the Son, Ra. Gotta give it on the go, gotta give it for the left, for the right, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, construction workers. Speaking of construction workers, gotta get it, of course, for them to do a little bit of construction to get it on the go, and gonna wait for that light to pass there. Anyways, gotta have to be waiting for the light. So construction work is not on the topic of the construction work, of course, is something that I have to be aware of, and of course consequently and prudently gotta discuss, of course, the need, of course, to construct and build, of course, the North American Collective civilizational complex, of course, the biggest sports arena venue ever, which was of course to be built in the coming days, weeks and months ahead, where me and Donald Trump, we're gonna inaugurate it. Me and Donald Trump, we're gonna inaugurate it. Me and Donald Trump, we're gonna inaugurate it by fighting on the Canadian-US border. by fighting on the Canadian-US border, and let's build a fort. And I just saw my brothers and sisters in uniform, you know, the police. Nobody's perfect, you know. Somebody gotta sing that rock and roll for the boys and girls in blue, and nobody's perfect. As I sing that rock and roll for the boys and girls in blue for our security forces and armed forces, I also gotta sing that rock and roll for my brothers and sisters who do their criminal rehabilitation. Gotta sing some rock and roll for my brothers and sisters who do their criminal rehabilitation, you know? Both, you know? That's how I rock and roll. Left, right, and universal revolutionary centrist, 21st century style. But then I fall in the minority of having Asperger's, which I'm part of this 0.44%, less than 1% of the population. But that's the main three problems for us. The lack of employment, regular employment, because many Aspies have jobs, employments, but then we struggle maintaining the employment, maintaining the regular employment for a long term. So I had many jobs even during COVID, and I still applied to a few, and now I'm waiting for the response. So that is something which, of course, I have to be consequently on the left and on the right and in the middle as I ride it, and that's something which we have to be doing on the left and in the right, and something which we have to be consequently on that, you know. So that's the life I live. Asperger's, Aspie. We have our strengths, and usually our strengths and powers are when we are involved in those special interests. As I am, of course, as I have predicted, of course, the North American situation, of course, the conflicts which is happening now, you know, the conflict which is happening now. I predicted it back in 2019, in October, November, I predicted what's happening now, you know. I predicted what's happening now back in October, November, you know, so that is what it is with that. That is what it is, and that's how we gotta get going with that, you know. It's something which we have to be doing, and something which we have to be mindful of. That civilization is a privilege. Having running water, you know, just think about that. Running water, electricity. That was my thesis back in 2023. Civilization is a privilege. The highways, the running water, the electricity. Go Hydro-Quebec, go. Gotta give some salutations to the workers of the past. It takes a little bit of that old school and appreciating some of that old school work, you know. So many decades to build all the highways, the train rails, the rails of the train, the highways, and the hydroelectric dams here. I gotta make a statement and say that they do not pollute. It's quite something which I will to see. They're the Bay James, one of the top biggest hydroelectric power plants ever built is in Quebec, right? It's in Quebec here in North America, one of the biggest ever built, top 5, I believe, if not the second or the third. From my understanding, the one that China built recently in the past decade and opened in the past decade is now the biggest. But before, I think it was even ours here in Quebec. Hydroelectric dam, that's how you got hydroelectricity. That's the reference I'm making for Hydro-Quebec. So, go Hydro-Quebec, go, you know, that's the electricity by which I charge my phone to myself to do this workout vlog. Is now I'm working, you know, and I'm working out, training, exercising, as I have been and will encourage all to do. And tomorrow we're gonna head back to the mountain. But I said since this week I did not go by the river, it's gonna be a good opportunity to just do a little bit of that change and go by the river, because yesterday we were by the mountain, and yesterday was Wednesday. Tuesday we were downtown. I checked the movie Ballerina, and gonna do some of that movie review maybe in the weekend. Gonna do a coffee with geopolitics and movie review and dream interpretation, because my anonymous friend had a little bit of a weird dream about me with long nails and dancing is my favorite sport. You know, you get Adrian Hunt on Dragon, and nobody's born a dragon. I changed my name, but still gotta get that money, you know, to change my name and get the money, you know, to change my name. Still costs a little bit of money, but money is to buy, sell. So here's what I will for us to build together in North America. And as it is a God bless the empire, goddess kiss, the march of the empire, you know. Together, pledge your allegiance, and that's all we gotta be consequently, and that's all we have to be doing now, and so we gotta do collectively here, you know. As the sun is shining, sun is setting, and that's where the mountain is. That's where the mountain is there, see? And of course, I will to build a four. The North American People's Imperial Coliseum on the Canadian-US border to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. The Caesar Superdome, of course, is Caesar Superdome. Caesar Superdome was, of course, where the Super Bowl, known as the Harbor Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl, aka Bro Bowl, was played. My 49ers lost by 3 points, you know, just by 3, and that's where we're at. See? That's where we're at. That's where we're at. That's where the downtown Montreal is. See? Right there. That's downtown Montreal, and that's the mountain, Mount Royal. So that's where we were. That antenna there, that's where we were yesterday. Remember in the video, if you check those antennas, but that's far off. That's really far away. That's kilometers and miles away there. You can see the antennas again, see? That's the mountain. But now we're far from the mountain. The three-peak mountain system called Mount Royal proper. Now we're gonna go towards the other mountains, the mountains of the river, because Hawk Island is surrounded by a big river, and we're gonna admire, of course, these beautiful, big majestic clouds here. So what I will to build together with whoever wants is on the Canadian-US border, you know, to build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum to be 11 times bigger than the biggest ever sports complex ever built for sportists in perpetuities, that is for sports in perpetuity. And the inauguration event is going to be me fighting Donald Trump on it. Let's build it 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, where my 49ers lost in Super Bowl 47, also known as Super Bowl, Harbor Bowl, Blackout Bowl, or Bro Bowl. One of my top 5 Super Bowls, and that's downtown Korea, Hawk Island, HAWK, Montreal. Big metropolis, beautiful city of 2.5 million people here in Quebec. So let's build it, and it's gonna be for sportists in perpetuities, for sports in perpetuity. Sports in perpetuity. Have sports events, fitness events, 24/7. Let's build it on the Canadian-US border. ASAP. See, that's the mountain. You see how big it is. It's a huge mountain, and it's three-peak mountain system, Mount Royal proper, with Ultramount and Westmount, the 3 peaks right between the east and the west. It's exactly between the east and the west of the island, exactly between the east and the west. But of course, it's exactly between the east and the west, but it's slightly south. And that is the oratory. And of course, let's build with the North American People's Imperial Coliseum. Let's build the Forgotten Goddess Temple. Forgotten Goddess, GODDSS, because I credit my surviving to the Forgotten Goddess Temple to be 11 times bigger than the oratory. 11 times bigger than the oratory. Oratory in Montreal, 11 times, so 11. And the pyramid, House of the Dragon, gonna be scarlet crimson, and scarlet and crimson are shades of red, and of course the Rainbow People's Palace for my fellow LGBTQ community, being that I am part of, being that I am myself androgynous pansexual, and the neurodivergent condition, meaning that I have Asperger's. So now I'm just gonna go into geopolitics, and again I'm just gonna say the 4 that I will to build, and let's start now. On the Canadian-US border, the biggest ever sports arena complex for sportists in perpetuities, for 24-hour sports, where of course the public workers can go and have tickets and have sports events for the firefighters, for the nurses, daycare workers, all different industries, firefighters, butchers, bakers, farmers, all the different steel workers, and gonna be every week for a certain industry, 24/7 sports for the brothers and sisters in uniform, for the Dragon Army, the Dancing Goddess Army, the brothers and sisters, boys in blue, the 5-0 police, 911, and of course we're gonna have that high schools, we're gonna have universities, all sports, all types of sports. Dancing is my favorite sport, but I also love boxing, and me and Donald Trump are gonna inaugurate it because I have been and would challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match ever since 2018, and let's start building that, and me and Donald Trump fight sportsmanship, because Donald Trump, Granddaddy Trump, made a mistake to impose tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. That was a mistake, to impose tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. That was a big mistake. The imposition of tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel was a big mistake, strategically, geopolitically. And yes, Canada, well, we have vulnerabilities. We have to admit that 85% of our exports go to the United States. And as a Quebecer, Canadian, North American who was born in the USA, 3 times post 1776, once as a woman, twice as a man, served in the same United States Armed Forces, 2 different wars, 156 years apart, always putting these marching steps now for the whole 50 states, always, and of course always now specifically for my brothers and sisters in Texas, of which I am calling for 1% of the proceedings of all the movie proceedings of the movies, of course, the shekels, the money which were made, of course, to be donated to Texas relief efforts. And anybody want to finance, commission me and my dream, that's more than welcome to do so. And my only stress now is financial, but grateful, thankful, my rent's paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, got food and coffee, paid my rent and paid my electricity bill and got food and coffee, and that's how we gotta get live with, and that's how we gotta get drilling on that, and that's how we gotta get going for now. We gotta be also encouraging to know that somebody's making some good loving hugging, and I'm not totally selfless. I don't pretend to be totally selfish. I'm not totally selfless. I'm not totally selfish. Try to be more balanced in the middle, equilibrium, 50-50, and sometimes more altruistic, sometimes a little bit selfish, for the self and for the other, But if you're a billionaire, give some charity. Give some charity. And let's rebuild the North American inner urban cities of the Empire, Canada, United States fused. The ghettos. We gotta rebuild them. Mass invest in the urban infrastructure, We gotta mass invest in the urban infrastructure and construction workers. Let's build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum for sports in perpetuity and Forgotten Goddess Temple. 11 times to be, of course, bigger than the oratory, and the other one to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. Caesar Superdome, of course, which was, of course, Caesar Superdome, which was where the Harbor Bowl was played. One of my favorite Super Bowls, the Caesars Superdome, and of course before it was known as the Mercedes-Benz, and now of course it's gonna be a new one which we're gonna build, and of course it's gonna be the Dragon House of the Dragon, which is gonna be Scarlet Crimson, of course, and that's how we're gonna get doing with that, and that's how we're gonna get that rock and roll. Gonna wait here prudently for the cars to pass, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and so we're gonna get that salutations, turn your heads left and right, and cross prudently, His body is a temple for pleasure and purpose, so always prudence. When you cross the street, it's double prudence, double check, triple check, left, right, but here's in theory is one way. There can only come from that way, in theory, but you never know, but not really here, it's not that less, but other places. In the field of yellow flowers, I love yellow flowers, if you don't know. That General Dragon Zero, General Rainbow Dragon, aka General Cuckold, greatest cuckold in the universe, aka Clit Dick Dip Clit. Lim Dick Dick Clit Dick. Sometimes goes that rocket, God is blessed, popping for those satellites 550 kilometers up in the sky. in geosynchronous orbit. Let's launch some more. But I do love yellow flowers. So now just going to discuss, of course, a little bit of geopolitics. What's been happening in the past is, of course, the letters sent by Trump. And of course, I got to make a statement again, as I do in the videos. This is mere geopolitics. This, you got to forget left, right, dynamics, centrist. Well, it's left, right, and center. Actually, you can say that it's left, right, and center. Yeah, you can say that this following statement is left, right, and center for us Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the USA. Regardless of other things, whatever exterior things are happening outside of Canada and United States. So this statement which I'm going to make, you have to say yes to it. You have to acknowledge it, that this is the truth. This is real geopolitics. This has nothing to do with art, artistics, philosophy, although it includes all those, but in a way that you're going to see why and how, if you can use a little bit of creativity and imagination to sow, of course, to so discern and multiple layers of the analysis, of which the following phrase, geopolitical phrase, of course, the following geopolitical phrase, of course, is of course consequential to be doing on that, you know. So that's what it is. So our main political interest, exterior, when it comes to foreign, domestic, external affairs, when it comes to foreign domestic affairs. What's that? Oh, goobers, I'm gonna wash them. Thinking of a World War III type of scenario, because I've been in that World War III type of mode ever since 2019. I predicted what's happening now. Let me see. Products of USA. Sunbell, I like sun, blueberries, products of USA. Probably somebody dropped them there, or about to get squashed. And oh, thank you for letting me pass. Here I kind of get priority, because it's kind of a pedestrian where you can cross, but you also gotta make yourself secure and make sure and turn your heads and nod, and you nod at each other and you affirm each other's and give each other priority, and that's it. That's all. Rock and roll safely, prudently, in the prudence that we have to consequently integralize, and as we are in the public, when we go into public, whether by car or pedestrians, you know, whether by cars or as a pedestrian, we have to, of course, be consequentially aware of that same thing which we got on that, and that's how we gotta get doing on the things of which we are aware of. Consequently, that I have responsibilities, duties, and obligations as for my fellow citizens, as my fellow citizens have for my liberty and security, and this work, which I'm doing here securely and in liberty. So Sunbell, products of USA, Jersey Fresh, 550. See, this is the thing that we Aspies have. We focus on details, and I was about to bring it so close to my face because, you know, I see blurred. I was prescribed some glasses, but due to financial constraints, and it's kind of not gonna be a good time for me to spend money on glasses. I can't really afford to buy glasses. I gotta be grateful, thankful that I paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, got some food, got some wafers, and got some sweets at home when I get back after this more than 5 hours marching workout by the river to indulge a little bit of my sweet tooth, and I bought it on a budget, less than $3, so that's rock and roll. But see, we tend to focus on things. This is an Aspie trait, Aspiness here. So if you see somebody in the store inspecting the, you know, and focusing, for example, on weird details like that, you know, weird details like those numbers there. See, like those numbers below the small numbers, or those small numbers, and those details, for example, we could be here. And it's interesting that it's 551 mLs. It's kind of an odd number, eh? 551 milliliters, one dry pint. How the classification, I mean, how it's classified instead of a pound, right? Usually it's a pound 454, or 100 grams, or 200 grams, or whatever grams, but this is like an odd, because it's mLs, right? It's not grams. So it's calculated in milliliters, which is usually for liters for volume, right? And this is a dry pint, or what's considered one dry pint, which is 551 mLs. So open question, is that an error? Is that a mistake? Because it should be grams more likely, eh? So anyways, I'm grateful. I'm gonna wash these in the next stop, and gonna eat them. So now we're gonna go back to geopolitics. Right. Beautiful sky. So this following statement, which I'm going to say, of course, has to be doing consequentially with the truth of our geopolitical reality. So you cannot argue with this following statement. It's always going to be, for now, at least for the coming decades, it's going to be, it's a yes today, it is a yes in the future. And of course it was in the, at least in the second half of the 20th century. In the second half of the 20th century, post the Second World War, when of course the British Empire was still dominant, and of course after the Second World War the influence and the power of the British Empire waned. I got 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 3 seconds. Yeah, 4 seconds, and that's all we gotta get doing like that, you know. So that is something which we have to be consequentially about, and we gotta be on that prudence, you know, going across the street. And I had plenty of time, I guess, but I didn't really run for it. See, even from here you can see part of the mountain. That's why I say that you can see it afar off, but that's miles and kilometers away. So as you can see that, see there? See that? That's where we were yesterday, the big antenna, television, radio, telecommunication antenna there. That antenna there is, of course, on the mountain where we go. My second home, my forest, the forest on the mistress, on the mountain. My doctor, second home, the doctor, and second home, and that's all we have to be doing, and that's how we consequently get on that prudence to go, and that's how we gotta get a little bit of that love, and here we go, you know. Anyway, so that is something which we have to be aware of here in Montreal, Canada. So the following statement, geopolitical statement, you have to say yes. And again, yes, this was so post, I'm going to say, because the British Empire had power before the Second World War, right? It was a major empire, but after the Second World War, with the decolonization and, of course, the independence of India by Gandhi in 1947, the British Empire started slowly. The dissolution of the British Empire post the Second World War is an event which made Canada in a way less strong, because it could depend less on British Imperial forces and British monarch forces, right, and resources. So the Commonwealth as we know it, and British and Canada changed, you know, the new constitution in the 80s anyways. But we still pledge allegiance to the king. What I say, it's time for the Republic and time for the Imperial Democratic Republic, the fusion of Canada and the United States thereof, and the Perpetual Union in the 21st century. And we're going to sign the Perpetual Union of the Imperial Perpetual Union here, and with the things which we have to do, finance, healthcare, and fitness, and sports, and of course mass finance, fellow citizens to work out, train and exercise, and other things of that nature. So of course the Perpetual Union is, I'm referring to the Articles of Confederation, which we're going to have to do it in the democratic, imperial, republican manner in the 21st century. So just geopolitically now, our main interest, and this applies to both Canadians, Canada and the United States, our main interest as Quebecers, Canadians, is to have the best most cordial relations with the United States. Economic, financial, commercial, diplomatic, cultural, social, military, defense, at all levels is to have the best cordial relations with the United States. So this is a constant, just like the pie. Not the pie as in the apple pie, cherry pie, fruit pie, bacon pie, meat pie, or any other edible pies that you can eat and consume, ingest, but in the pie as in this, the end, the symbol, the mathematical symbol, which is of course a relation between the circle, the area, the circumference and the diameter of a circle, of course, which has to do with the relation of the circle, of the diameter and the area thereof. So that's strictly what I'm referring to. So keep all other things out of the equation, just this geopolitics here. So our main interest, and just like that pi symbol, which is a constant, you have to say yes, and that never changes. That never changes. Of course, it's 3.1415, and that never changes, you know. That never changes. So that number is always the same. Never changes. It's always 3.1415, 3.1415, 3.1415, right? It's always that same number, but of course it can be rounded up, right? So you can round up the number, but it's always the same. So it's a mathematical constant. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. Doesn't change. Doesn't change, you know. It doesn't change. Just like this statement, it doesn't change. It's always the same thing. Reciprocal for both Canada and the United States. The geopolitical reality. So our main interest is to have the best, most cordial relation with the United States. And see, another aspect trade is we would focus on those numbers there on the side, which I kind of see blurred, but it's 44, 44, 44, and the 0 line and the 002. And just like I was saying too, think of it, you know, the N is the symbol to represent the pi symbol in mathematics. The relation between the circumference, the area, and the diameter of the N. So that, it's two-headed, right? It has two heads. Two heads. Two faces, two heads, but it represents the same relation, kind of balanced relations. So the end symbol is of course the same. It just never changes, right? It's not something which can be altered, changed. So the same is for the constant. It's a constant, and the same geopolitical phrase, it's a constant reality for us, and has been in the past decades and will be for a long time in the coming decades. So our main interest is, I love those cranes, gotta give salutation to the crane operators. We're gonna need some cranes to build the Forgotten Goddess Temple and the North American People's Imperial Coliseum and the House of the Dragon. So we're gonna take this statement, and you cannot argue with the following statement. You cannot say no, and you can only say not even maybe. You have to say yes. So our main interest as geopolitically is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other, you know. Relations with each other. Canada, United States, reciprocal. In terms of finance, economics, sports, fitness, cultural dynamics, in terms of the geopolitical relations, which of course is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. That is just what it is with that, and that is just how it is consequently in the whole operation and the whole setting of the affairs which we have constituted for the left, for the right, and in the middle on the go. That's what we have to be doing on that left, right, and Z, and that's what we have to be saying yes to that. There's just no other way, right? There's just no other way around the following statements, which of course they have to be prudent, and they have to be, of course, say it as a statement that it has to be a yes. There's no no. You cannot say no, right? Because it's just I'm just discussing geopolitics. It's just the reality of the geopolitical realities. You cannot argue with the following statement. Once again, I'm going to repeat it because it's important. So us, both Quebecers, Canadians, Quebecers, and my brothers and sisters in the United States, our main top priority interest when it comes to foreign affairs, So I'm not speaking about internal domestic affairs, but when it comes to foreign affairs. When it comes to foreign affairs, you know, our main interest is to have the best, most cordial economic, financial, commercial relations with each other. There's just no other way, of course, which can be, of course, the congruence of the importance of this statement. And it's the top priority which our politicians on the left, on the right, and in the center must have with each other, with both Canada and the United States, which is to have the best cordial, most cordial relations, economic, financial, commercial relations with each other. There's just no other way out of that. And you cannot argue, you cannot say no, you cannot say maybe. But that is just how it is, you know, that is just how it is. So that's just geopolitics. I'm not discussing other things, you know, but just mere geopolitical reality is, as I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and strategist, this I haven't heard a lot in the news, but that has to be discussed by great scholars who have great university degrees and etc. in political science or whatever have you. Myself, I have my own doctorate, which I presented my thesis independently, concordium, and that's just a statement where we have to begin by that statement, both Canada and the United States. Then we can advance forward. In foreign affairs, I'm not discussing internal matters, right? Like, for example, the whole other situations which have to do with internal, for example, security policies, or let's say legalization of cannabis, which cannabis is legal here, you know, cannabis is legal here in Canada, right? So cannabis is legal here in Canada, you know, cannabis is legal here in Canada, you know. So that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get. 4. So that is just, of course, the geopolitical strategy, which, of course, we have to say by the endurance of whatever the case may be, to just say yes to it. So again, you cannot argue with it, you know. You cannot argue with it. So that is just something which, of course, we have to acknowledge and say yes. It has to be a yes. There's no maybe. You cannot argue with it. Whoever comes to join us here in the collective, also, you know, it's just the geopolitical reality again. So there's no way out of it. And now we're gonna cut through the park here. So once again, our main interest, you know, is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other, you know, the best, most cordial relations with each other. So of course, consequently, it's something which we have to go full in. So all of our leaders, the Congress of the United States, the Senate, you know, the Republicans, the Democrats, the Liberal, the Conservative, the NDP, whoever you are on the left and on the right and the center, that's just the geopolitical reality. And then we can move forward. But you have to say yes to that. And again, in foreign affairs, when it comes to all our exterior diplomatic affairs, all our external diplomatic affairs, both reciprocal for Canada and for the United States, is to have the best relations with each other. That's just what it is, you know. That's just what it is, you know. There's just no other way, you know, around that. There's just no other way around that, you know. There's just no other way around that. No other way. No other way, no other way. Hot. So that's just what we gotta do. There's just not something which we have to do. That's how we have to say yes. There's no negotiation really to be done there, you know. There's adding, and how so? We can go how so it is so, but it is so. First of all, that I asked the question, and it's good to ask questions, you know. How so? Well, it is, of course, our common historical development. And not only our common historical development, but of course our common geography, but both geographically and our historical destiny and our future destiny, because we're a collective North American civilizational complex, which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. Is distinct. So those two go hand in hand. We're not divorced from Western civilization, but we are distinct. So you have to again acknowledge that fact. We're not divorced from Western civilization, but we are a distinct emergent collective civilizational complex, of which here in Quebec the beauty is we got 9 point something million Quebecers, close to 10, almost 10, maybe not 10 yet, but 10, approaching 10, where we speak our French language. We love our French here, you know. That's why I gotta put in my videos are bilingual. If you notice, my videos are bilingual, right? Most of my videos are bilingual. Like Celine Dion, I made Celine Dion, and Celine Dion, I love Celine Dion. I actually wrote a few. See, two motors. It's like two heads, two faces of the same coin. Makes me think of the bipolar. Bi, of course, bi can relate to I am gay, bi, straight, because I'm pansexual, so that's pansexual includes being gay, being bi, being straight. Well, I mean pansexual and bi is pretty much, you know, pansexual includes the whole array of gamma of sexual plurality, of which I am pansexual, but nonetheless, that's out there the number 2. So that's Canada and that's the United States, two motors of the same North American collective engine. That's why my bipolar, again, not to be confused with a psychiatric, mental, psychological condition, but bipolar is in the strategy, my bipolar strategy for the fusion of Canada, United States via my DRT for total benevolent dominance and dominion, the BDD, for the 21st century. And we got to fuse, we got to merge, and we also have to rebuild the ghettos, we also have to build those 44 tunnels, we also have to mass finance fitness, we also have to finance mass tourism. You know, because a lot of people are in debt, disillusioned, the prices of food are growing. So my DRT theory is inclusive to the strategy, the bipolar strategy. And so by providence, we passed by the two motors. You had the plates, I said two motors. So two, just like the bipolar strategy, by relating to the Latin word for bi, from bicentennial, for, you know, two, double trouble. It'll be 2 in 1, the Imperial fusion of the North and the South, because we're North and the South. So our main interest, what is, and because I asked the question, as one should ask some questions, how come it is so? Again, it is so far, I guess, with four reasons, 4 main reasons, and you could add 156 more, you know. English language could be one, hey? Common historical destiny, although here we have the French as well, which it's maintained, and we're going to continue to do so. And of course, the fact that our geography makes it so, because we got coast to coast, ocean to ocean, 2 oceans. To the east is the Atlantic, to the west is the Pacific. And me, I was depressed and suicidal, but what got me out of being depressed and suicidal was crossing Canada coast to coast in 2017. And again, Aspies, you know, the most problems we face is 9 times higher depression and suicidal rates, 9 times higher depression and suicidal rates, and of course 9 times higher. And depression and suicidal rates is also 11 times higher, 80% of unemployment. So consequently, that's what you have to keep in mind. In all the interactions, everything that we do, of course, has to be fundamental unity of Quebec, Canada, in the concordium, of course, for the bipolar strategy, that our main interest is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. Hot day today in Quebec. We love our French here, and if you hear most of the French language, which I speak, of course, and I love, and we gotta please learn some French if you come here, you know. Learn some French. I can teach you for free. Come to see me, I'll be more than glad to help you out. to volunteer. I volunteer if you need French, you know. So I'm gonna just hydrate and continue the vlog, and we're gonna continue towards the river. This is in French is abreuvoir. L'eau, water is the l'eau. Abreuvoir, de l'eau. So this is an abreuvoir. This is a fountain. Water fountain, abreuvoir. And water is the l'eau. Water. So. Gotta tie my lace a bit there. There's some laces, and the thing is, you have to make an effort, you know, because the French language is very rich. So that's the thing. If you gotta make an effort, I always commend people who make an effort, you know. If you gotta make an effort, I guess sometimes it's more difficult for other people, you know, to make an effort, and that's what it is with that, and that's how we're gonna get drilling with that, and that's how we're gonna rock and roll, you know. So it's XYZ, and that's what we're gonna get doing on that rock and roll, you know, and that's how we gotta get loving. That's what it is with that. So again, the statement is, our main interest is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. There's just no other way around that. The foremost interest of which we have is the primary interest, is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. So there's no to that statement. There's no to that statement. There's only yes. There's only yes. You cannot argue with that. You cannot argue with that. You cannot argue with that, right? There's no arguing there. You have to say yes, regardless of the inclinations, and our leaders have to say yes. Our historical destiny, the English language, the geography, and the socio-economic relation and cultural relations, you know. Those are just the manifestations, of course, of which we are to be involved with, you know. For the North American collective complex is something which has to be said to be yes, you know. And I'm gonna go by the water here. So you can have a little bit of water here. I'm gonna discuss the DRT, because that's part of the bipolar strategy. So again, you can't argue with that, and I'll give you several motives of how come it is so geopolitically, the geopolitical reality. As you see these beautiful lotus, that's lotus about to pop off here. So yeah, Montreal, Hakatan has lotus flowers. See some are about to, oh, I see some white there. I guess it's white lotus with that, and that's how we got, and that's how we're gonna get drilling with that. Gonna get drilling on the go, man. Here we got that beautiful lotus. So what is the explanation? Again, is our historical context, and of course the historical context is that something which we have to be seeing on the North American civilization which we got, and that's how we gotta get doing on that, you know. Something which we gotta get consequential for the prudence which we have to be doing in, of course, the matters of which we are. That's something which we do. That's what we are, and that's what we have to be doing, you know, consequently in prudence, where we are involved in the majority of this world affairs where we are now. And keep in mind the point. The point is, of course, that I also predicted what's happening now geopolitically in several spheres of geopolitical what I call techno-geopolitical analysis and philosophies, which of course can be embedded, such as in my DMA, direct military action, which has caused resentment amongst some non-NATO member diaspora communities, among some non-NATO diaspora communities. And of course, I've written a document for the need and the public-private partnership for the peaceful reconciliation with non-NATO member diaspora communities because of the DMA, which has caused resentment and possibly even certain exterior foreign elements from foreign countries, it could be from BRICS countries, it could be from other countries which have financial capabilities, military espionage capabilities, in order to foment internal crisis and even employ underworld criminal organizations, The underworld criminal meaning the underworld criminal organizations, the international crime groups, to foment interior discord, to foment interior crisis, to foment sabotage, to foment and exploit vulnerabilities which touch both Canada and the United States, such as XYZ numbers of pluralistic based subgroups within the North American Collective, or certain diaspora member communities which are non-NATO aligned due to the DMA, which have, now I'm getting a bit academic scholarly, I know, but I'm trying not to, but most of my work is scholarly, academic, and craterocratic, academic, scholarly, and monastic, I guess. Monastic, craterocratic, and of course academic, scholarly, intellectual, philosophical, and in terms of geopolitics. Geopolitically, I meant to say. Not the other work as I do as an artist, which loves rock and roll, although you can stipulate and philosophize about the geopolitics of rock and roll, I guess. I got 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all I needed. 4 more steps. Almost five. Well, 4 steps and like 3 small ones. 4 big steps and 3 small ones. So that is just the reality of our geopolitical context of today. And again, I predicted what's happening now. Back in 2019 in October, November, I come back to that work because it's super important for what I have been doing and what I am doing and what I will continue to do, because due to my Asperger's, it's something which is sometimes very intense, concentrated, super focused, and super engaged. But that's how I operate as an ASPI, who is an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and who has geopolitics as a special interest, also known as obsessive interest. But for me to utilize symptoms and obsessive interest when denoting my Asperger's condition, my aspiness, does not require for me to do so, because my neurodivergence and aspiness is manifested in the routines, the strange, odd behaviors and interactions, which sometimes might seem a bit strange, weird, and awkward, and might not seem categorically confluential to purport to whatever the other societal needs for me to adjust. But it is just building bridges, right? Because I am willing to build bridges with my fellow 99.56%, the neurotypical population, which you constitute 99.56% compared to me, who's part of the ASPI community, who we constitute less than 1%, less than half of a percent, constitutes 0.44%. And of course, that's what we have to do: build small bridges, medium bridges, big bridges, and sometimes super big and thick and long bridges, depending on the context and when and where and when and with how, with the different varieties of the individuals, whether individuals sovereigns within the 99.56%, the neurotypical community, or the neurodivergent community. So see how my brain works, because geopolitics is my special interest. Now I make a meditation and concord the geopolitical realities of these 2 big pillars. Beautiful they are indeed, and lots of work and brain and sweat and brain and sweat has been involved in building the transmission lines, 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 right? They're transmission lines that carry electricity. So they were built probably decades ago and maybe redone every decade, every so on and over years, you know, to maintenance and the maintenance thereof. I don't know all the technicalities. I don't purport to claim to know much information. What I do know is that they are potential open for sabotage and espionage, and they are very vital for our North American collective because, of course, our electricity goes also to 5 or 666 states: Maine, Vermont, New Jersey, New York, all the way to Manhattan Island. The electricity from Hydro-Quebec goes, of course, all the way there inside internally. And that's what consequently we have to, of course, be mindful on the situation and the prudence that we might be to consequently and integrally be so divergent as we, of course, analyze from a geostrategical perspective that they are crucial to our safety, security, and maintenance and all the well-beings that we do through these transmission lines which carry electricity, and they're super important, vital, and gotta salute the workers who build them, and we're gonna have to reinforce and build some more, and we're gonna have to implement by total security, total service, total defense, being the new 911 Dragon Army protocols for the total North American rehabilitation of the collective. And of course that's what we have to do as the sun is about to set. I'm about to discuss the DRT, debt refusion theory. Get ready. I'm gonna switch now and just focus on the DRT. What is the DRT? The D stands for D, debt, R for refusion, T for theory. It is my theory and it is the only solution, or not necessarily the only solution in the sense that my DRT theory is the only solution as I'm dictating it, but that it is the solution or something very similar which resembles in fundamental principles my DRT theory is the solution apropos to what it is. So I'm going to discuss what it is. The DRT, debt refusion theory, is the consequential theory which I've formulated over the past years, and it is timely for today. July 10th is the 3-day moon feast beginning today at 4:44 p.m. lasting until Sunday 4:44. So we need to implement it ASAP. Why do I make that statement? Is because we have 3 main economic problems which are facing us. Not all of us, but the majority, the vast majority of the population. A growing indebtedness, growing credit card debt, growing credit card debt, growing credit card debt, growing credit card debt. I don't have a credit card debt myself. I have a credit line. I have a credit line. So the fact is that I have a credit line, right? So I have a credit line myself. And so, of course, that credit line is something which we have to be admitting on the plurality of the things of which we live in and where we are, of course. That, of course, the credit lines are also, it's a debt. I have $10,000 in debt, basically, like I say, and I pay 10.44 interest. 10.44 interest. So I got $10,000 in debt, you know. $10,000 in debt. $10,000 in debt. I pay 10.44 interest. But there's a record in the amount of credit cards, and this is applicable for both the United States and Canada. So this financial information being the indebtedness, and in the past days, past weeks, past months, and in the past 5 years, every other month we see in the news the record credit card debts. So people even now today across Montreal, across Quebec, Canada, they're swipe that credit card, swiping the credit card, buying with the credit card. Is Thursday, so stores are open later till 9-10, you know. So they're swiping the credit card, swiping across the 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories across the collective North American civilizational complex, across both Canada and the United States somewhere. New York, New Jersey, you got that time zones, don't forget. Here it's in the EST time zone, Montreal, but on the west coast in Vancouver, British Columbia, where I went in 2017, and of course also in San Francisco, we gotta subtract 3 hours. So they're gonna swipe even some more of the population later after our swiping is done here. So basically what we mean to say is that there's continuous growing debt. And that's the part of one of the 3 main problems, economic, financial, commercial problems. It relates to the financial problems, which the majority of the population we're facing, is also the increasing cost of living, you know. the increasing cost of living. So every day the prices increase. Even the other day I saw milk. Wow, last time I bought milk was about 3.5 years ago. Correction. About 4 months ago. Not years, but months. I haven't bought milk in months, right? I think it was like February last time. February, March. About 4 months ago or so. Maybe close to 4 months and like 3 weeks. Maybe close to 5 months. Like February or March. So after you got April, May, June, and now we're in July. So February or March I bought last time. And I saw it went up $2.50 and $1.50. So milk went up. I just bought it last week because I wanted to get some of that calcium, you know. So basically, of course, all the prices are going up. The problem is the prices on the goods which we mostly need, you know. The bread, of course, the bacon. And of course, that is what we need, the bread and the bacon. So of course, on those prices that are going up is fundamental to our daily living, right? Because bread is necessary, right? Bread and eggs and sausages, the food prices are going up. So that's a necessity. Everybody got to eat, right? Even Wall Street billionaires and, you know, everybody got to eat, you know. So basically, other different foods, but whatever the case may be, of course, but nonetheless. So that's the main problem. The other problem is, of course, the stagnation of the salaries. But I can see a fourth problem because my rent increased. I'm not complaining about my rent increasing because my rent actually has not increased. I can't complain for my rent, okay? Because my rent, I'm not going to say the number, but I'm going to say it wasn't more than $10. Might have been exactly $10, but I'm not gonna, maybe it was 10 exactly, but I'm gonna say it wasn't more than 10. Monthly, right? So monthly, but even if it was 10, that means 10 times 12, that's $120. 10 times 12, right? 10 times 12 months is $120. So let's say not more than 10. That's just what I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna go into my special, how much I pay rent. I'm not gonna say whatever. I'm just gonna say that I find that I can't complain. I find it fair. I find the increase fair. Last year was increased also every year, but I find the increases were fair. They were not excessive to what the standards, and we have certain standards and rent controls, what are set here in Montreal, Quebec. So they were not more than that, although I heard that sometimes it's way more than that. And also tenants and landlords, there's always a counterbalance of rights, duties, and obligations. Rights, duties, and obligations, and rights, duties, and obligations, and duties, and rights, and obligations. Duties, rights, and obligations. There's always the rights, the duties, and the obligations, you know. The rights, the duties, and the obligations, you know. The rights and the duties and the obligations, you know. The rights, the duties, the rights, the duties, and the obligations. It's always a counterbalance. Look at that beautiful sky. Sky. The rights and the duties and the obligations always to be balanced in concordium, right? But the fourth problem is also the rent, because some rents have increased so much. So it adds pressure on the majority of the citizen consumer. Because the stagnation of the salary makes it that it's harder to pay rent, and it's harder to buy the necessities every day. The consumption, to eat what you eat, the bread, the butter, the cheese, the eggs, the milk, etc., 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 etc. While the salary of the stagnation of the salary. So those four, basically, those four for both Canadians and brothers and sisters in the USA. So that's why I'm making the statement that it is the only solution or something similar. Something similar is to my DRT has to be the solution. Has to be the solution. So here it is explained. But again, keep in mind that my DRT also integrates monetary integration theory. So inside my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory is integrated monetary integration theory, the MIT, not to be confused with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but the monetary integration theory, which was the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. And again, it's an emergency. We have to implement something, if not my theory per se, because I discuss this generally, but something very similar in principle and fundamental principles, because we're on the verge of an economic financial collapse. Maybe tomorrow, Friday, full moon, July, just before the full Leo full moon. It's possible that it's going to be occurring. It's possible that it's going to be occurring, just possible that it's going to be occurring, an occurrence. So that is just a possibility for it to occur, So that is just something which we have to be aware of, fundamentally. In essence, In essence. So here it is explained. And again, it's an emergency situation scenario. We cannot proceed further. You realize, you look at the numbers and record credit card debt. What's record credit card debt? Layoffs. I guess that would be the 5th. Layoffs in Canada. It was announced last week. I saw in the news that it's massive. The most ever public cuts in public service. I warned Carney. Carney, remember in my videos, if you check back, a few days ago, a few weeks ago, a few months ago, I asked Uncle Carney, what are we going to cut? Even Cousin Trudeau, what are we going to cut in the future? I asked him, now it's happening. I warned about this even years ago during COVID, that this is going to happen due to mainly the programs which were implemented during the coronavirus. The COVID which I had and I survived. I got triple vaxxed. I urge all to please maintain the coronavirus protocols. To please maintain the coronavirus protocols. The coronavirus protocols. Of course, the protocols, the hygienic protocols, the hygienic protocols of the coronavirus have to be, of course, maintained as much as we can in the public, because we got those added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, which the Imperial citizens are going to have duties and responsibilities as we're going to implement the DRT, debt refusion, and build those 44 tunnels for the North American Collective Civilisation complex in terms of a thermonuclear war. So here it is, the DRT, debt refusion theory, explained as simple as I can, because due to my neurological diverse condition known as Asperger's, being an Aspie, there's the characteristics. We have the tendency to use too much scholarly, academic, intellectual, and verbal sophistry that might impede the comprehension on different levels and might even be detrimental to comprehension and understanding fully. But again, note to say that due to those aforementioned financial problems for the vast majority of both the Canadian and my brothers and sisters in the USA populations, wow, look at those beauties. So beautiful, gorgeous flowers. Just nice, super nice. So that's the problems. Economic, financial, the growing debts, so much debt, the credit card debt, the stagnation of the salaries, the increasing rental costs, and the increasing cost of living for both Gen Z at least and the millennials, but even other generations even. A vast majority of the populations were broke. Myself, I'm rich in other things, and especially this theory which I put on the table, parallel to those trillions of kisses, the push-ups, their kisses, and of course whatever the case may be, and of that red favorite color. For the empire, the children are innocent, and for them we got to construct the 44 tunnels across Canada, United States, Quebec, in case of a thermonuclear war, because they're the children of the coming democratic Imperial Republic, the empire, the benevolent empire, the citizens, and for the rehabilitation of constituencies of the 63, the 10, the 50, and the 3, which we're going to fuse Canada, United States, and my DRT we're going to implement it bi-nationally, because we're in the same situation. So for the empire, the DRT, debt fusion theory explained. It includes monetary integration theory. Monetary integration theory is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. So we're gonna, yeah, the Germans, the Italians, the French, the Belgians, they destroyed their national central banks. They destroyed their national central banks. The Germans, the Italians, the French, they destroyed their national central banks, right? The Belgian, many countries, not just those four, but other countries, they destroyed their all currencies, and they destroyed their national central banks. And of course, they put, a common bank, the ECB, the common central bank, and of course, the common central bank is of course something which of course they put together. The common central bank is of course something which they implemented. They created a common central bank. The European Central Bank they don't have national central banks anymore, in Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, many countries, they don't have national central banks. They have a common multinational central bank which issues the euro, the common multinational currency. They destroyed all the national currencies. So here it is explained. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, because keep in mind again, my DRT theory, the debt fusion theory, includes the MIT monetary integration theory, which was implemented in the European Union. So you gotta keep that in mind. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt. My debt, your debt, their debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. I got $10,000 in debt to the RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, right? That's my debt, $10,000. So we're gonna take all the debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all that debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. To US dollars. We're gonna add it, all that debt, we're gonna add it with the public-private debt of the US dollars. The public-private debt of the US, which is gonna be in US dollars. So that's why we convert all the public and the private debt of Canada to the public-private debt to the US dollars, right? That's why we do the conversion. So we convert it. So all that money, that's gonna be the initial money supply. Added together, that's gonna be the initial money supply for a new central bank. For our new central banks. For our new central bank. So all that debt, the public and the private debt, is gonna be the new central bank. That's what it's gonna be. All the public and the private debt is gonna be, of course, the new central bank. I'm just gonna hydrate a little bit because I'm really thirsty. So we're gonna hydrate here. Usually I wait a few seconds, but this is gonna give me a few seconds to wash these, A few seconds to wash these, and I'm gonna hydrate and second Essen. And then we can discuss the DRT much better, the consequential environment, which is going to be discussion of the DRT. Oh yeah, it's good to have that. It's good to have that water there. I'm so grateful. Anyways, so the DRT, that diffusion theory, for the creation of the UE, you know. For the creation, here's the river. See the big river? It surrounds the whole area, you know. The whole Montreal, Montreal, it all surrounds it right about, round about. So the DRT, that diffusion theory, we're gonna explain it now. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. My debt, your debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, you know. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're gonna convert all the public private debt into US dollars. Into US dollars. Right? So my debt, your debt, all debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. All the public and the private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. All that debt, gonna add it with the US public and private debt. All that money is gonna be the initial money supply for a new central bank. Right? For a new central bank. Look at those beautiful clouds. So we're gonna create a new central bank, and we're gonna issue this new currency called, see how it's surrounded by a big river, the UE. U.universal, E.exchange, U.UE. U.universal, E.exchange, U.UE. The UE. U.universal, E.exchange, U.UE. The UE. The universal exchange unit. The UE. The universal exchange unit. The UE, U.universal, E.exchange, U.UE. And now we're gonna go by the river. See somebody there fishing. Gotta be careful, people, because it's very dangerous here, eh? It's very dangerous, and don't swim. You can just be careful. You gotta know the river, but you know, you gotta be careful, because you know, it's a big river and it's powerful, and you don't want any problems, you know. So the public-private debt of Canada, we're gonna take it, add it all together, convert it coast to coast, ocean to ocean, add it all up, convert it into US dollars, and of course, all that money, we're gonna of course create a new central bank, but we're gonna have to implement the DRT, the debt diffusion theory. We're gonna have to implement it binationally. Look at that beauty. We have to implement it binationally. I don't know if these are edible or not. Yeah. Oh, they're so good. They're really good. Oh wow, so big by the river, eh? Wow, this is gonna heal my. Maybe I'm gonna gain my memory back. No, I'm joking. Sometimes it never comes back when you have amnesia. Or sometimes it's caused by trauma and you gain it by other trauma. These are good. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. There's no bears here, but now they're going to waste. If I don't eat them, they're gonna go to waste. I sure they come. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. Right? So my debt, your debt, all the debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. Wow, look at that big one. Oh wow, so delicious. So all the debt, wow, there's so many back there, but you can't go that far, I guess, but you could, but I'm gonna go in the woods. So all the public-private debt of Canada, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna convert it into US dollars. My $10,000 to the RBC, yours. My $10,000, your $10,000. We're gonna convert all the public-private debt into US dollars. Canadian coast to coast, look at this one. So we're gonna create the UE, U.universal, E.exchange, U.universal exchange unit. Wow, they're so good. They're better than at the store in the wild wilderness here. Wild berries. All the public-private debt converted into US dollar. All the public-private debt of Canada, United States, all that debt we're going to convert to US dollars. We're going to create a new currency called the UE, Universal Exchange Rate. So we're going to have the value of the US dollar. With that money, we're going to rebuild the infrastructure of Canada, Quebec, United States. We're going to build the 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. Mass finance citizens' fitness. Mass finance citizens' fitness. Mass finance tourism. Mass finance citizens to work out. Mass finance citizens to exercise. Mass finance physical activities. Mass finance the rebuilding of the North American infrastructure. Mass finance infrastructure building. Mass finance lots of good valuations and lots of good loving, lots of good building of the hydroelectric dams. More hydroelectric dams. We're going to finance people to work out, people to exercise. We're going to mass finance building the 44 tunnels. Mass finance fitness. Mass finance intra-North American tourism across the empire for the collective. For people to work out, people to train, people to exercise, people to do fitness activities. Lay the fundamental constitutional Imperial Constitution for the Democratic Imperial Republic for citizens to work out and to train. Create a true binational, integrated, bipolar, dancing goddess army with a dragon army and constitute the fundamental dominion for the 21st century, the imperial dominion of the new Imperial Democratic Republic by the fusion of Canada and United States, of which the DRT, the aforementioned DRT, debt refusion theory, is the aforementioned solution. Fundamentally, in essence, there's no other real tangible solution but something which resembles my DRT theory. In essence, in consequence, my debt refusion theory, where due to the fact that we are now in today's financial situation with record debt, credit card debt, growing cost of living, growing financial pressures, growing stress, growing societal disharmony, growing sexual frustrations. I'm not there, but friends with benefits only. And of course, the rebuilding of the ghettos of North America with a mass built 44 tunnels inspired by the Cheyenne Mountain complex in case of a thermonuclear war across the empire. These tunnels are inspired by the Cheyenne Mountain complex, which is the headquarters of NORAD. Paradoxically, I'm no fan, no supporter of Hamas, but supposedly they built between 350 and 600 miles of tunnels. But we're going to build tunnels here of our own for, and in case of a thermonuclear war. And that's my berry eating session here By the river we go. Once again, the DRT. There's no other solution but the DRT. Look at that big one. We're going to take all the public-private debt, convert it into US dollars, and of course we're going to create this new currency, the UE. So once again, I'm going to explain it. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. What, there's more here. Well, these are got to be eaten. These are going to waste now. We're going to take all the public private debt. We're going to take all the public private debt, convert it into US dollar. We're going to create the UE, the universal exchange unit. UE, the universal exchange. Look at those. Thank goodness I'm financially stressed. Thank you, Mother Nature, Goddess. The river. They're going to waste, eh? Nobody's picking them here because in the middle of nowhere. Well, right by where we are here. So big. Wow. Better than a supermarket. Yeah. Wild berries, man. So good. So good. So, all the public-private debt converted into your... They're going bad if you're not eating them. Probably is the last occasion for them. I knew I would have bought some cylinders, but I had no idea they were here. Maybe a few years ago I knew. But with my memory loss, well, not recent memory loss, but I remember 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I go back in time. You know what? I think I was here about 7 or 8 years ago. Actually, and I did what I do now. I ate berries here before COVID, before I had COVID. So that's what we're gonna do, and that's what we got. You see, berries. These are going wait to ripe here. See, wait to ripe. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, consequently. Let me explain it again. It's going to go up and down. So I'm going to take all the public-private debt. All the public-private debt. I'm going to convert it into US dollars. All the public-private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. Add it with the US dollars. With the US public-private debt, which is already in the US dollars. So no conversion needed there. No conversion needed there, but that's what we're gonna do. So all the public-private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollar. That money is gonna be the initial money supply for a new central bank. We're gonna issue a new currency called the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit. Which, of course, we're gonna issue this new currency called, of course, the UE, and the UE is going to have the value of the US dollar. So that's what it is fundamentally, and that's what we're going to be doing, and that's where we're going to go on the rock and roll now. On the rock and roll as I go. Wow, and just last time I was here was like a few days ago, and last week, 2 weeks ago, and just so many things grew. Like these grew, and I was trying to grow. So big growth, I guess, because it rained, eh? So due to the rain, it's manifesting a little bit of that river here where we are in the wilderness. But here is dangerous. So you got berries there, but don't go for those because you got to go north and south. But look at those beauties, eh? Quite purple. So let's go. We're gonna go up at the next occasion, but here you're in the wilderness, eh? Don't forget. So you gotta be prudent and watch it because you don't want to slip by the river, you know. So all the public-private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna convert it into US dollars. So that nobody passes there, I guess. Nobody had passed to see the berries because they were going to waste. They were even going bad, eh? And are not being eaten. They're not being eaten. See, there's plenty of wild berries even here. See, they're going bad. See, because people are not picking them. See. So all the public-private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. Wow, it grew so much in just last time I was here is 11 days, I believe. Last 8, 9, 11 days, 12 days, 13. It wasn't that long. Gotta check the videos, but it wasn't more than 2 weeks since I last passed here. No, impossible. I was here last week, pretty sure I came by here last week. Anyways, regardless, gonna discuss the DRT again, and we're gonna go by this way here. We're gonna two routes and gonna see. So we're gonna take all the public-private debt of Canada. We're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna, including my $10,000, we're gonna add it with the public-private debt of the US. All that money is gonna be the initial money supply for a new central bank. For a new central bank, you know. For a new central bank, you know. For a new central bank. For a new central bank, you know. For a new central bank. For a new central bank, you know. Somebody making some good loving there. That's good. That's good. That sure gives me some hope. I love seeing that. And nothing wrong with it. And gotta watch a little bit for that drill. And I'll watch as we go here. Beautiful cities, you know. And that's how we gotta get drilling, you know, for the left and right, and for the set, and for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, and the firefighters, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, who are involved in the production, distribution of food now. That's how we gotta get drilling like that, and that's what we have to be doing, you know. Look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous here? Summer, summer by the river, 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 river. Summer by the river in the Montreal. Island of the Hawk. Look at that. You know we gotta click on the dock. Yeah. All the debt, public and private debt. By the whipping willow gotta raise. You know I'm an asterisk, but I love that rock and roller. So all the public and the private debt, we're gonna take it, of course. We're gonna take all that public and the private debt. All my debt, your debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. All the public and the private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars, add it with the US dollar. And of course, we're gonna convert it with the US dollar, and we're gonna create the UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The universal exchange, the UE, the UE, the UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The UE. We're gonna create this new currency called the UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The UE is gonna have the value of the US dollar. We're gonna set an interest rate level of 10%. We're gonna build with this money. We're gonna be able to rebuild the infrastructure of the North American Collective. We're gonna be able, of course, to build massive bridges. That 44 tunnels constructed built because of in case of a thermonuclear war. And of course, we're going to be able to mass finance tourism, citizens of course finance tourism, and whatever the directive of which we have to finance, we're going to be able to mass finance fitness across the North American Collective, mass finance citizens to work out, train, exercise based on my philosophies and theories, and a massive public-private partnership, because we're going to have a massive public-private partnership in order to implement my DRT theory, and consequently to do what needs to be done, the building of the 44 tunnels, the rehabilitation of the criminal population, mass finance tourism, and mass finance citizens to work out, to train, to exercise, mass finance citizens fitness, mass finance intra-empire. That attend the 50 and the 63 new super states in the Imperial Democratic Republican super states. We're going to mass finance tourism to establish a strong esprit de corps and solidarity with the new democratic imperial citizens, the new imperial citizens and potentiates. We're going to have to try to give some amnesty to those who have not many criminal convictions. I guess 4, just a little 4, depending on the gravity of the convictions. Of course, we got to justice and discern. We got to justly discern justly in a democratic, republican, and imperial manner for the sake of the citizens and the potentials of the empire always in perpetuity. Gotta tie my belt now because it fell down. And here you can come and you can. Here I would come and just try to bathe here in the corner. I don't know how slimy it is. That looks like it's slimy on the side, but since you got the rocks here, I guess this little corner can be when the sun rises over there in the east and comes there, I guess between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. I guess the sun's gonna be there. Look at that beautiful cloud. This isn't just like majestic and divine and rock and roll, but anyways, we're gonna head back. We're gonna get back now because we got a lot of marching to do. So pledge your allegiance, support the vision, the mission of the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom, which is the consequential fusion of Canada and the United States via the major public-private partnership and the implementation of my DRT, the Debt Fusion Theory, the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, and the DFT, Democratic Fusion Theory, and that's what it is, fundamentally what we're going to have to be doing, and that is fundamentally something which we have to be consequently in prudence to go up and down and left and right. And I guess here we got a little piece of nature where of course we got Mother Nature to discern, and beautiful waves here which we got. Those beautiful waves consequently, see, another place where I guess one can just do a little bit of that. Somebody left some oranges. What is that orange? Something, is that mushrooms at the bottom? I'm not sure. What is that? Looks like the Scorpio constellation to me. It looks exactly like the Scorpio constellation. See how it is? Like the Scorpio constellation for Scorpio. So pledge your allegiance, support the DRT, Debt Fusion Theory. Again, all the public-private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars of Canada. It has to be binationally Canada, United States. Here we're in the wilderness. Again, by the jungle, the DRT for civilization and nature. We're going to create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Army, aka the North American Imperial Citizens SSD Legions and the Dragon Army with the DGA Dancing Goddess Army together. Dancing Goddess Army, the North American Imperial Dance League for the environmental education and action. It's a massive dream, a massive public-private partnership of which we we have, and of course which the dictums imply, of course, that we have to work proponent to whatever the work is the work, which of course consequently, which we have to implement and we have to dictate and we have to consequently, of course, be involved with from a pluralistic perspective. And it's pledge your allegiance, our family. That is the rock and roll song. Look at this beauty. Looks like a little bit of that jungle. So it's Adrian Hana Dragon. Keep my name out of your mouth if it's not for a blessing. Here in the wilderness, I love it. Well, I feel good. I was a bit moody. I'm no longer depressed, suicidal. It's been years. I encourage all to work out, train, exercise by the DRT. We're going to be mass financing citizens fitness, mass financing citizens to work out, train, exercise. We're going to do lots of good. And of course, be mindful if you do venture out that you have consequently some things of which you have to be prudent about. But we got these beautiful yellow flowers here. Once again, the debt fusion theory is consequentially the financial theory, which is going to enable us for our coming into our empire together. The Democratic Imperial Fusion of Canada and United States for the 21st century, BDD, benevolence, dominance, and dominion. For the 21st century geopolitics, we're going to build more sats, we're going to build the Golden Dome, and we're going to put a HAWK, H-A-W-K in it. It takes a massive public-private partnership, all institutions and organizations. My Scorpio brother, just speaking of Scorpio, astrology that I saw Bill Gates is related to water, Scorpio, but also to transformation and sometimes pain or suffering, but also, of course, unseen forces. As of course, how many really know how what's the internal operations of a computer, microchips and gadgets, but gotta call my brother Bill Gates, and of course all who will. It takes also black rock and black stone out to public, private financial institutions. It takes private and public financial institutions, and it's not black stone and black rock because they split. Here's another spot where You can just dip, don't swim, don't swim, don't swim, don't swim. There's very current, you know, you get sweet, but you can see part of the river. This is, goes all the way to the other side. So this is the Snake River, aka St. Lawrence River, which surrounds Montreal, aka Hawk Island of the Hawk. And here how it goes, you got some rocks there. So just here I will go just to there a little bit and be prudent and just splash myself if you need to be hot. Between 7 a.m. and 3 a.m. I guess you get some sun, you gotta get some tan, and that's what it is on the go 24/7 for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, plumbers. We're gonna get some of that cadence. We're gonna switch to that French because we're in la belle province, and welcome to Montreal. Listen a little bit of that French. This Quebec, a Canadian who was born 3 times post 70-76. Read George Patton through a glass darkly, as he believed, as I believe in reincarnations. As I was born in the United States, served 2 times in the same United States Armed Forces. 2 different wars. 2 different wars. 156 years apart, and just got to read through a glass darkly that George Patton poetry, and look at this beautiful island. Isn't this just gorgeous? This is the best place. I was born here on the island several times as a man and woman, a woman, a man, even before 1492, a man and woman. And I was a Quebecois, not as the Quebecois as today, between 1688 and 1735. Believe in reincarnation or not, today, July 10th, pledge your allegiance. Thou art family, get ready for that French. Because we here in La Belle Province, Quebec, one of the 63. For the Empire, for the Empire, for the Empire, for the Empire, for the Empire. We rise together, Dragon Army. That's your allegiance that you see. Here's a great spot. But I don't get much sun, you're going to have to keep it in motion. But it's a beautiful place for us to start that French. Because here you can get some of that red, my favorite color. Puis en français, bienvenue. On est proche de la rivière québécoise. S'il vous plaît, laissez pas de la pollution ici. Parce qu'on a de la flore et de la faune, il faut que vous mettez ça dans le recyclage. Ça ne me dérange pas que vous pouvez, mais là, on va sortir un peu parce que par là, c'est quand même un peu plus difficile d'y aller. Puis même maintenant que je dois quand même faire attention comment je vais pencher les genoux pour que je monte en haut. Oh, de la gauche à la droite, Louis Cyr, donne-moi ton bras, puis sors-moi d'en haut, parce que je suis la rivière, puis je penche mes genoux, le dragon en dans le ciel. Québécois, aux la pente, que ce soit la danse, Québécois, c'est pour la danse, pour venir le faire dans une transe, puis les pas s'avancent vers le soleil. C'est l'été, c'est pas l'hiver, on est réussi à s'en sortir. Tournez votre tête de la gauche à droite quand vous sortez, car des fois, il y a des cyclistes qui viennent, qui s'en sortent et qui passent bien vite. Fait que c'est le coucher de soleil, je dois commencer avec la gratitude de je regarde là-bas. Oh, quel bel beau nuage, puis le beau soleil. Je commence avec la gratitude de je me sentais pas exactement à 100% tantôt quand je suis parti, mais là ça va bien mieux dès que je continue à m'entraîner. Quand je m'entraîne, je fais toujours du bien, puis j'adore venir ici. C'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que j'adore passer par la rivière. Vous savez qu'hier, je suis allé à la montagne, ma deuxième maison, puis je suis regardé les nuages. On dirait quand même un ciel, quelque chose de très vraiment beau, le paysage, là. C'est dans le sud, j'imagine, ça doit être proche des États-Unis, de la frontière, ces nuages-là. Je peux pas vraiment dire exactement sont à quelle distance, là, mais quand même, vous voyez cette belle rivière qui entoure la Montréal, l'île de Montréal, la métropole, dans cette tournée d'ici, bien sûr que ça fasse un bon entourage, là, un beau coucher de soleil qui est vers l'ouest-nord, mais on dirait, parce que là, ça paraît que c'est dans le nord, mais dans le fond, c'est comme à l'ouest. Mais parce que là, c'est comme le nord, là, on s'en va vers l'ouest. Par là-bas, c'est l'est, là, c'est le nord, puis là, c'est le sud. Tu sais, quand je vous pointais vers les nuages, c'est le sud, juste pour s'orienter un peu dans la circonstance, bien sûr, qu'on fait dans l'entourage, bien sûr, d'avoir de cette circonstance qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, à vivre ici, dans cette concordance ensemble. Puis je dois commencer à dire, puis dire, avec ma gratitude, c'est avec ma gratitude. La gratitude, même si je vis un stress financier, je dois quand même dire ma gratitude, bien sûr, que j'ai payé mon loyer, j'ai payé ma facture d'électricité, puis j'ai du café, puis j'ai du thé, bien sûr. Fait que juste regarder ces beaux nuages quand même, tu sais, sont d'une beauté quand même exceptionnelle, ça en fait penser, bien sûr, ça en fait penser, bien sûr, que j'ai bien fait, bien sûr, pour le faire, d'avoir, venir ici, d'avoir pris une décision, bien sûr, de venir ici sur la montagne, de la montagne, parce que, bien sûr, je vais souvent à la montagne, mais là, ça faisait 4 jours que je n'étais pas allé. Je suis pas allé samedi, dimanche, je suis pas allé lundi, mardi, parce que je suis allé voir le film avec mon ami Anonyme, puis c'est pour ça que j'ai dit, ben, je suis allé, fait qu'aujourd'hui, je viens de la rivière, parce que ça faisait quand même un couple de jours que je suis pas venu, bien sûr, à la rivière, bien sûr, parce que je peux voir, bien sûr, dans cette affaire, bien sûr, pour le faire, bien sûr, pour le dire ma gratitude. Fait que j'ai commencé avec la gratitude, avec la gratitude, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence, bien sûr, d'avoir fait, bien sûr, point de convergence. Fait que, bien sûr, la gratitude. Ça va. Clic. Longue. That's what it is with that, and that's how we're gonna get doing, you know. So, c'est ça, fait que, bien sûr, dans ce point de circonstance, bien sûr, d'où qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, aujourd'hui, même si je vis un stress financier, c'est dans ce stress financier, bien sûr, que je dois vivre maintenant, puis même que je dois vivre, bien sûr, avec mon Asperger, avec l'autisme hautement fonctionnel, que je dois vivre. Mais la gratitude, j'ai payé mon loyer, hein, j'ai payé ma facture d'électricité, bien sûr, puis j'ai du café, puis j'ai du thé, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence pour être rendu dans une affaire d'avoir, bien sûr, de l'histoire d'aujourd'hui qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui, bien sûr, à vivre dans ce point de concordance, puis qu'on doit vivre ensemble. Moi, en tant que neurodivergent, vous, en tant que neurotypique, les 99,56%, on n'a pas, c'est pas des relations antagonistes. Vous savez que moi, j'ai l'Asperger, je vis juste un stress financier, mais c'est sûr, c'est pas à cause de vous que j'ai un stress financier. Quand même, j'ai été capable de payer mon loyer pour le mois de juillet, payer ma facture d'électricité, puis payer mon loyer, payer ma facture d'électricité, bien sûr, payer mon loyer, hein, payer ma facture d'électricité, payer mon loyer, puis tantôt j'ai mangé des petits baies quand même sauvages, tu sais. C'était quand même des baies sauvages que j'ai pu manger, bien sûr, des baies sauvages. Ça a été toujours la concordance d'avoir mangé des baies sauvages. Tantôt, quand je parlais en anglais, bien sûr, c'était un beau délice quand même de la nature qui m'a permis d'avoir, bien sûr, mangé ces beaux petits délices. C'est quelque chose de bien sûr que ça fait bien sûr de la situation qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, actuelle à faire, bien sûr, de la concordance de l'histoire entre la civilisation et la nature, tu sais, entre la civilisation et la nature, entre la civilisation et la nature. Fait que c'est toujours cette histoire de concordance de la civilisation et de la nature, bien sûr, pour qu'on soit rendu, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence et de contingence où qu'on s'exprime d'une manière neurodivergente. Et cette neurodivergence, ça fait bien sûr qu'on est différent, tu sais. Fait que dans cette neurodifférence, bien sûr, ça fait bien sûr une différence qui n'est pas toujours, bien sûr, visible, tu sais, comme parce qu'à cause de ces mutations, bien sûr, qu'on vit, tu sais, ces mutations, bien sûr, qu'on vit dans ce point d'histoire, bien sûr, ce point d'histoire qu'on vit, bien sûr, dans ce point de concordance, bien sûr, qu'on fasse dans cette situation actuelle qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, à vivre aujourd'hui, bien sûr, dans cet élément, bien sûr, de vivre ensemble. C'est sûr que c'est pas une situation antagoniste, c'est une situation, bien sûr, d'avoir une relation, bien sûr, de participation actuelle, de coopération. Parce que, tu sais, la neurodivergence, c'est pas un négatif, tu sais. C'est pas négatif, la neurodivergence, bien sûr, c'est pas négatif. C'est pas négatif, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr. Il faut que je le dise moi-même dans le point de l'instance, bien sûr, que moi, je suis Asperger, donc cet autisme hautement fonctionnel, ça fait que ma différence, comment que moi, je vois les choses, vis-à-vis les neurotypiques. Fait que c'est comme bâtir des ponts toujours pour expliquer c'est quoi. Puis pour bâtir ces ponts. Bâtir ces ponts-là, tu sais. Hey, regardez ça. Hey, wow! Toute une une tribu, une tribu, une tribu. La tribu des... Vous n'êtes pas des vaches. C'est pas des vaches, c'est des outardes. Qu'est-ce que vous êtes? Des outardes ou des vaches? Des oiseaux? Vous êtes un tribu, des tribus. La tribu des oiseaux. Je vous chante, vous venez pas me voir. J'ai rien à vous donner pour que vous mangez. J'adore le rock'n'roll. C'est ça, je suis bon à faire du rock'n'roll dans ce point de faire du rock'n'roll, d'en faire bien sûr le rock'n'roll dans ce point de convergence et bien sûr pour les faire, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence qu'on est rendu, bien sûr de point de convergence et bien sûr de point de convergence et puis allez bien sûr vous faire bien sûr le point de convergence qu'on est rendu à vivre ici, bien sûr. C'est pour faire bien sûr le point de... Pour finir avec l'Asperger's, c'est qu'est-ce que c'est l'Asperger's? Qu'est-ce que c'est pas l'Asperger's, bien sûr? C'est l'Asperger's, c'est pas l'Asperger's, bien sûr, c'est une condition de neurodivergence. Fait que juste pour faire un petit résumé, pour que ça soit clair, l'Asperger, c'est une condition que notre cerveau, il y a des mutations. T'sais. Fait que ces cerveaux, dans ces mutations au niveau microscopique, font bien sûr qu'on a certaines divergences vis-à-vis comment qu'on voit le monde. Fait qu'on voit le monde différemment. Puis moi, je suis quelqu'un qui adore la géopolitique, le rock'n'roll, et bien sûr, la géopolitique, c'est mes intérêts spéciaux. Nous, les Aspergers, les autistes hautement fonctionnels, les Aspis, je préfère dire Aspergers. Nous, les Aspergers, bien sûr, on a ce point de comment qu'on voit le monde du point de vue de l'Asperger's. Bien sûr, cet Asperger's qu'on voit le monde différemment à cause de ces mutations. Mais ces mutations sont pas visibles sur le cerveau. J'adore danser. Je peux danser pendant des heures. C'est mon sport préféré. Oh, ouais. Je vais faire du rock'n'roll. Je suis bon à ça. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, c'est bon ça. Hey, ça j'adore ça. C'est bon, ça, je peux en chanter quand même des. Mais chanter un peu quand même. Vous voulez voir danser? Vous dansez pas, vous? Moi, si je danse, ça n'arrête pas. La prêtresse, Dragon Arc-en-Ciel, j'adore ça, la musique puis danser, mais moi, je compose vraiment des chansons rock'n'roll. Je suis bon à ça, mais dans des choses sociales, tu sais, les interactions, les interactions sociales, tu sais. Je suis pas bon. Les interactions sociales, bien sûr, ça m'aurait fait, bien sûr, j'aurais aimé financer les artistes locaux, tu sais, moi-même, tu sais, en vivant un stress financier maintenant, mais bien sûr, c'est en vivant un stress financier maintenant, bien sûr, c'est des choses que je dois avoir de financement aussi moi-même, mais c'est sûr que si je serais millionnaire comme Céline, je financerais des artistes comme ça, je ferais incognito aussi, tu sais. J'achèterais un paquet de CD ou acheter un paquet. Si je serais millionnaire, milliardaire comme Céline, ah ouais, Céline, déguise-toi donc, puis viens de voir, déguise-toi donc, on va voir si le monde, ben là, je sais que la santé, ben, de Céline, vous la souhaite la santé, là, mais elle n'a pas l'Asperger's, par exemple, elle a une autre condition, puis c'est plus du niveau physique. L'Asperger's, c'est neurologique. L'Asperger's, c'est neurologique. C'est pas physique à l'extérieur. Fait que les mutations du cerveau des Asperger's, c'est pas vraiment visible, tu sais. C'est à l'intérieur, puis c'est la manière du social qu'on a de la difficulté de la compréhension sociale, tu sais. C'est juste ça l'Asperger's. Puis il n'y en a pas bien, c'est pas beaucoup, c'est pas bien connu. Il n'y en a pas bien des gens qui ont l'Asperger's. Moi, je suis quand même unique. C'est bien une petite communauté de 0,44%. Même pas un pourcentage, là. Même pas 1% de la population a ça. 0,5%, là, c'est pas beaucoup. C'est ça, je dis à Céline, bien sûr, qu'elle finance, bien sûr, qu'elle fait donner, bien sûr, du financement aux artistes, comme ici, locaux, là, moi-même. En tant qu'artiste, moi-même, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je leur dois, bien sûr, de la même manière que je suis moi-même de la faire, bien sûr, moi-même, je fais du rock'n'roll, tu sais. Fait que j'en compose du rock'n'roll, là, que ça chante, le folklore du 20e siècle, là, on a des satellites dans les airs. Pas de bébite, juste des bisous, pas de bébite, juste des bisous, pas de bébite, juste des bisous, ouais. Ah ouais, si je rock'n'roll, j'arrête. C'est ça l'Asperger's, nous, on a des intérêts spéciaux. Fait que ces intérêts, ça nous préoccupe. notre quotidien. On a des routines rituelles. Fait que ces routines rituelles, bien sûr, font bien sûr qu'on aille bien sûr ces routines rituelles qui se tournent, hein, notre intérêt, qu'on peut être super intense, super concentré, super dedans, super engagé quand on travaille, quand on étudie dans les intérêts spéciaux. Pour moi-même, c'est ma trinité d'intérêts spéciaux, c'est la géopolitique, le rock'n'roll et l'entraînement physique, que je préfère, l'entraînement physique au quotidien, mais c'est la danse. Que je préfère comme sport, mais j'adore la boxe, le hockey, c'est féminin, que ça soit féminin, masculin, moi ça me dérange pas. Je fais partie de la communauté LGBTQ, je suis monsieur, madame, homme, femme, monsieur, madame, androgyne, tu sais, je suis androgyne, fait que c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que à cause de mes réincarnations, des fois j'étais né homme, femme, ici québécoise, pas dans la québécoise d'aujourd'hui du 20e siècle, mais dans la québécoise du 20e siècle, entre 1688 et 1735, que j'ai vécu, bien sûr, entre 1688 et 1735, bien sûr, que j'ai vécu, bien sûr, dans ce point de concordance d'avoir vécu aujourd'hui, entre 1688 et 1735, fait que c'est dans ce point de convergence, bien sûr, qu'on a du quotidien, dans ce point d'histoire où qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, d'en faire ce point de convergence de l'histoire, dans l'histoire de la concordance, où qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, à vivre, tu sais, ce point de l'instance de la convergence la convergence de vivre aujourd'hui avec l'Asperger, cette différence qu'il n'y a pas de médicaments pour. C'est ça qu'il faut que vous compreniez, là, ça se donne pas de... je vais vivre avec, je vis avec. C'est quelque chose qui... C'est pas une maladie, premièrement, l'Asperger. C'est juste qu'à cause de ces mutations, encore une fois, qui ne sont pas visibles, tu sais, du point de vue visibles sur le crâne extérieur du cerveau, là, mais sont à l'intérieur. Pensez-y comme des micropuces, tu sais. Comme des micropuces. C'est comme des micropuces, tu sais, mais c'est des petits micropuces là, qui existent bien sûr dans le cellulaire, bien sûr, dans le cellulaire, puis c'est des petits micropuces, bien sûr, qui existent là, dans le cellulaire, dans ce point de convergence de la cellulaire, bien sûr, dans le cellulaire, bien sûr, pour le faire, le point de la contingence, bien sûr, mais c'est des choses, bien sûr, qui existent à l'intérieur du cerveau. Puis, encore une fois, les Asperger, on constitue une petite minorité de 0,44%. Fait que pensez-y à ce chiffre-là. Il n'y en a pas bien, il y en a qui ne savent même pas c'est quoi l'Asperger. Les problèmes chez nous, chez ma petite communauté, c'est 3 problèmes majeurs. Le manque d'amis, j'ai pas vraiment besoin, je suis correct, je suis bien, mais juste si vous voulez être ami avec bénéfice, là, homme, femme, vous avez l'âge adulte, vous voulez me faire l'amour, vous êtes noir, blanc, noir, arc-en-ciel, quel autre que ça ne dérange pas de la collectif que vous venez ici, mais je me cherche juste des partenaires pour des massages et bien sûr, la chanson est 24/24, prêtez allégeance les jours où vous êtes famille, ça constitue cette allégeance vis-à-vis à mon travail que je veux faire avec vous, le Québec, le Canada, les États-Unis, dans le point de contingence pour l'Empire, soit bien sûr pour le rêve qui se manifeste comme le royaume de la déesse et du dragon qui danse, qui est fondamentalement un appel à un partenariat public-privé, qui est fondamentalement un appel et pour un partenariat public-privé. C'est ça fondamentalement, parce que c'est ça, je suis bon de la géopolitique, puis je dois dire que je prends beaucoup de fierté dans mon travail indépendant en tant qu'analyste théoricien et bien sûr stratège. Mes stratégies de la géopolitique sont pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, sont pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord dans ce point de convergence, bien sûr, pour les avoir, dans ce point de convergence pour les avoir aujourd'hui, bien sûr, au qu'on vit aujourd'hui. Je dois dire, une belle, quand même, un moment donné, je vais venir m'entraîner ici, peut-être juste faire de l'entraînement ici, dans le titre. Je l'ai commandité un gros 3 heures d'entraînement vidéo ici avec du rock'n'roll en anglais puis en français. Ben, ça en fait plaisir de vous faire la danse ici. Amener de la musique, mais il faut que ça soit sur YouTube permise, là, mais en tout cas, fait que bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence qu'on doit vivre ensemble, moi, en tant que Asperger, et vous, je dois toujours bâtir des ponts, bien sûr, bâtir ces ponts avec vous, et bien sûr, bâtir ces ponts que je dois bâtir, des fois des plus petits ponts, des moyens, des grands, des super ponts, qui sont énormes en grandeur, longueur, largeur et quantité et poids, bien sûr. Fait que c'est toujours bâtir ces ponts-là avec vous, parce qu'il n'y a pas de relation antagoniste. C'est pas une relation antagoniste. J'ai pas de ressentiment négatif envers vous, la majorité de la population, mais comme bien des aspects, la majorité, on souffre de trois, bien sûr, trois problèmes majeurs chez les Aspergers. Trois problèmes majeurs, soit le manque d'amis, pas vraiment besoin d'amis, mais des amis avec bénéfice seulement. Bien sûr, le manque quand même d'emploi, tu sais. Le manque d'emploi, c'était 80%, tu sais. Le sans-emploi, c'est beaucoup, tu sais. Beaucoup de sans-emploi, tu sais. Beaucoup de sans-emploi, là. 80%, c'est inacceptable, là. 4 sur 5, 10 sur 10, 8 sur 10, 80%, là, des Aspergers sont sans emploi. J'ai eu bien de l'emploi. Le problème, c'est garder nos emplois à cause que la malcompréhension, qu'est-ce que c'est pas l'Aspergers? Ce n'est pas une maladie mentale. C'est là qu'il y a des enjeux, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de confusion, de démystification à faire. Qu'est-ce que c'est l'Aspergers? Il n'y a pas de médicament pour le donner. Moi, je dois vivre avec ça. Je dois faire la gestion de mes caractéristiques, comme bien des aspis, à plusieurs intensités et niveaux, avec certains individus, des citoyens souverains neurotypiques. Vous, les 99,56%, vous n'êtes pas pareil. Il ne faut pas vous généraliser. Un Québécois qui n'est pas pareil à un autre Québécois, ben vous êtes quand même les 99% parce que vous êtes neurotypique. Moi, je suis le moins d'1%. Je fais partie de cette communauté de 0,44% on voit à cause de ces mutations du cerveau au niveau microscopique. Encore une fois, c'est pas visible sur l'écran, mais on voit le monde différemment. Fait qu'à cause de ces mutations, puis on a des caractéristiques qui peuvent paraître étranges, bizarre, étrange, hors norme, même quand même, ça peut paraître un peu peut-être. Moi, j'aime pas la violence, j'aime pas la violence, je suis intense, je suis concentré, je suis hyper vigilant, mais je me suis fait attaquer par surprise. Dans un couple d'années, j'étais tout ensanglé, j'étais tombé, je me suis cogné la tête, puis j'étais allé à l'hôpital général juif. Ils m'ont recraqué, j'avais le bras droit disloqué, l'épaule droit disloqué, puis un couple d'années, puis je me suis fait... Ils m'ont recraqué le bras, puis j'étais mis sur des médicaments, j'étais comme dans un coma, tu sais, pendant un couple de jours. Ils m'ont mis sur certains médicaments pour la douleur, là. Puis j'étais comme dans un médicament. Ils m'ont donné des médicaments pour la douleur, puis j'étais comme dans un coma, là. Fait que j'ai survécu ça, puis j'ai la misère à me souvenir de ma vie avant... Je pensais que j'avais déménagé en 2016, en juillet, mais il paraît que c'était en 2015, fait que ça fait 10 ans. J'habitais avec une place, il y avait beaucoup de moisissures. Beaucoup de moisissures, bien sûr. Il y avait une place où il y avait beaucoup de moisissures. Souterrain, c'était comme un sous-sol, comme une petite cellule de prison, bien sûr. C'était comme une cellule de prison, mais c'est ça que j'ai dit souvent, que j'ai servi mon temps, bien sûr, ayant servi mon temps, bien sûr, dans ce point de conséquence, que j'ai servi mon temps. Et bien sûr, c'est quelque chose que, je dois dire, ici, c'est un beau parc. Je voulais faire l'entraînement physique ici, là. Là-bas, c'est beau pour en faire l'entraînement physique. J'adore voir ça. C'est quelque chose que moi, j'adore faire dans ce point de contingence. Et c'est bien sûr quelque chose que j'adore. J'encourage les gens. Je fais appel, bien sûr, à faire appel, bien sûr, à soutenir l'entraînement physique. C'est quelque chose que moi-même, j'adore. J'adore, bien sûr, dans ce point de conférence. J'adore, c'est ça que je fais en ce moment. Fait que moi-même, j'ai perdu entre 80, bien sûr, 80 et 90 livres, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence où que je le vis, bien sûr, maintenant. Et bien sûr, c'est quelque chose que je vois, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence, de vous encourager, bien sûr, à faire de l'entraînement physique. Pour le faire, bien sûr, on a affaire d'avoir de la contingence, bien sûr, dans le point de faire une affaire d'avoir la vie. Aujourd'hui, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'il faut que j'apprécie moi-même, bien sûr, dans la situation, bien sûr, de vivre aujourd'hui, you know. Puis je dois bâtir ces ponts-là, fait que je dois bâtir, je dois faire l'effort. L'effort, il faut que ça soit réciproque. Des fois, ça peut être difficile parce que on a des caractéristiques, encore une fois, qui sont bizarres, des fois étranges. C'est comme la manière qu'on s'exprime des fois dans certaines choses, puis on n'est pas bon dans le social, tu sais. Des engagements sociaux, notre cerveau, on a de la misère avec les non-écrits sociaux, là, la conversation sociale, les comportements dans la société, tu sais, on peut être étrange, les Aspergers, là-dessus, parce que ça vient difficile pour nous. Notre cerveau il est différent, vous comprenez? À cause de cette différence dans le cerveau, on voit le monde différemment. Fait que on doit toujours bâtir ces ponts-là. Par exemple, tu sais, l'espace personnel de 2-3 mètres, 2-3 pieds, là, on a tendance à briser cet espace personnel parce qu'encore une fois, c'est des choses que c'est dur pour nous. C'est juste c'est ça, c'est dur pour les Asperger, ces choses-là, ou répéter 2-3 fois la même phrase, ou l'école et Léon, on va peut-être répéter la même phrase, que quelqu'un va s'exprimer d'une manière, on va dire mot à mot qu'est-ce qu'une personne va dire, ou certaines choses on va pas comprendre, on va... Tu sais, mais c'est juste le dialogue, il faut nous le dire des fois directement. Vous dire, OK, arrête de parler, ou juste tais-toi 5 minutes, puis, tu sais, c'est ça, il faut nous le dire. Des fois, nous-mêmes, on dit des choses directement, sans savoir qu'on offense vraiment. On va parler des intérêts, des sujets, on se rend pas compte que la personne n'a pas d'intérêt de ça. Comme moi, si j'en parle de la géopolitique, c'est mon intérêt spécial, hein. Je suis connu comme intérêt obsessif. Nous, les aspis, ces intérêts-là, je peux pas les appeler obsessifs, parce que moi, c'est faire des études, des analyses, les théories, les stratégies, le développement des théories et des stratégies de la géopolitique, ça vient naturellement. Chez nous, c'est comme, c'est ça. Mon cerveau, il est tic sur la géopolitique constamment, sur le rock'n'roll constamment, sur l'entraînement physique constamment. Depuis plus que 7 ans, une routine au quotidien, on a des routines rituelles. Puis des fois, c'est dur à changer. Des fois, ça vient au détriment des autres choses. C'est ça le problème. Des fois, ça vient au détriment. Exactement, ça peut être négatif. On peut négliger d'autres choses, tu sais, comme le social, les choses de même, tu sais. Et c'est beau, ça. Hey, du rose de même. Moi, j'en veux une de rose de même. C'est beau, ça. Je trouve ça vraiment beau, là. Sérieusement, là. Moi, vous savez, je suis quelqu'un qui aime les couleurs vives dans ce point, là. Mais, waouh, regardez ça, c'est beau, ça. Hey, c'est belle maison, ça, regarde. Ah, ouais. Je sais pas, vous voyez, c'est quand même... Ça rentre pas bien sur la couleur sur le... Hein? Sur le téléphone, mais c'est comme rose, blanc, là. C'est vraiment cool. C'est rare, ça. J'ai pas vu ça souvent. C'est rare, quand même. Je pense pas, c'est la première maison que je vois de même. Je vais m'approcher un peu. Fait que c'est ça l'Asperger, juste pour en finir. Puis là, on a les 3 problèmes. C'est le manque d'emploi, le manque d'amis, puis le taux de suicide puis de dépression, il est très élevé. Fait que moi-même, j'étais en dépression, j'étais suicidaire. Et j'aimerais ça acheter ça à mon ami anonyme. Ici, direct sur la rivière, elle aimerait ça. Si j'aurais de l'argent, j'y achèterais tout de suite une maison ici, là. Parce qu'elle était mon ami à cause que j'ai jamais eu de l'argent vraiment, mais j'achèterai une maison à mon ami anonyme, sérieusement. Quand je vais combattre Donald Trump ou pas quel sujet que je vais faire, je vais acheter une maison parce qu'elle était mon ami, pas à cause que j'avais de l'argent. Puis je dois dire de la gratitude parce que mon ami anonyme, que je vais proposer encore en mariage, ça serait spécial parce que je suis androgyne pansexuel, fait que ça fait quand même un mariage arrangement ouvert, là, mais... Parce que moi, je suis homme, je suis femme, je suis pansexuel. Là. Ça fait des années, je me cache pas, mais je me suis fait bien des amis à la parade et dans les villages, mais à cause de l'Asperger, ben, après un appel, 2 appels, oh, c'est étrange, c'est bizarre. C'est difficile pour nous de faire des amis, on n'a pas bien des amis. Mais juste des amis avec bénéfice, je veux rien savoir. Juste vous savez à quoi attendre, je suis pas en difficulté d'autre chose, c'est juste financièrement. Puis, c'est beau ça, comme un cercle, là. Comme un cercle, là, mais c'est pas un cercle parfait, là, mais quand même, hein. Petite fleur jaune, j'adore les fleurs jaunes, là. C'est comme un petit cercle, si on voit ça d'une manière, puis là, tu sais, c'est des calculs mathématiques qui me sautent dans la tête, là. C'est un peu pour la circonférence, puis bien sûr le chiffre pi, le 3.1416, là, le pi pour bien sûr la surface du cercle qui a à faire avec le diamètre du cercle. J'adore ça, les pourcentages et tout ça. Puis la géopolitique, c'est mon royaume, mon domaine. Fait que c'est ça le problème. J'ai vécu la dépression, j'ai vécu un suicidaire et j'ai de la misère à me souvenir de ma vie. J'ai eu cette trompe, puis peut-être je faisais de la drogue, j'étais alcoolique là, avant 2014 l'été, puis il y a une couple d'années, puis des fois c'est ça que ça cause. Ça peut causer la perte de mémoire. J'adore cette toilette, s'il vous plaît, pas des barbouilles en dedans. C'est une belle toilette publique, un peu électrique. Puis je vais juste m'hydrater, puis je vais parler de la TRD, théorie de la refusation de la dette, parce que c'est ça que je suis bon. Dans d'autres choses, je suis pas si bon, mais je suis bon au rock'n'roll, l'entraînement physique, puis à écrire, bien sûr, des livres d'enfants, avec, bien sûr, qui ont comme thème la nature et la civilisation, bien sûr, les pompiers, les travailleurs en construction, et tous ceux qui font, bien sûr, le travail public, et ce que du travail privé dans la cuisson, dans la nourriture, dans la ferme. C'est ça mes thèmes un peu, mais j'ai pas eu assez d'argent pour publier. Bien sûr, ça a coûté 500$ pour un agent littéraire. Là. J'ai pas eu d'argent pour ça. Là. Mais bon, je suis en crise financière, mais je suis toujours ouvert pour l'amour, puis les finances, puis la commission, puis l'argent quand même. Tu sais, quand même... J'ai payé mon loyer, j'ai payé ma facture d'électricité, j'ai du café, du thé, puis j'ai du café, j'ai même des gaufres chez nous. Fait que c'est quand même l'accès à l'Internet, tout ça, qu'est-ce que je fais en tant que travailleur en géopolitique, je pense que c'est valide pour la sécurité binationale du Canada, des États-Unis encore de plus. Fait que je vais m'hydrater puis je vais discuter de la stratégie bipolaire. Ne pas confondre la stratégie bipolaire avec la psychiatrie, la psychologie, mais je parle de la stratégie bipolaire pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord pour la fusion du Canada des États-Unis dans un complexe de sécurité puis de défense puis de services. Les enfants sont innocents, sont joyeux, je suis joyeux. C'est ça l'important, là. Ils sont en train de courir, puis... pour l'Empire, les enfants, mais c'est pour ça qu'il faut bâtir les 44 tunnels. 4 tunnels, bien sûr, c'est la stratégie pour la défense, c'est pour la continuité du collectif de la civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord, pour la vie dans le Québec, dans le Canada, dans les États-Unis, dans le cas d'une guerre thermonucléaire. Parce que c'est possible qu'il y ait une guerre thermonucléaire. C'est pour ça qu'il faut qu'on se fusionne avec les États-Unis, puis qu'il faut qu'on aille de la défense pour le dôme, bien sûr. Donc, fait que là, c'est le jour de la pleine lune, 3 jours pour moi. Ça a commencé aujourd'hui à 4h44 de l'après-midi, puis ça dure jusqu'à dimanche parce que c'est 3 jours. Fait que demain, ça va être un jour, vendredi, avant le sabbat, du vendredi à minuit, samedi le deuxième jour, puis dimanche le troisième jour, avant la grosse fête, parce que les 2 lunes que je préfère bien sûr, toutes les lunes pleines sont bien pour la déesse, parce que je suis mystique, donc c'est le dieu pour la déesse avec des bénédictions, des châteaux et des canins, puis milliards de trilliards de bisous là-dessus, mais bon, fondamentalement, c'est... Je suis mystique, j'ai pas toutes les réponses. Venez pas me voir, je vais vous chanter du rock'n'roll si vous me posez des questions spirituelles. Ça va être plus de la comédie puis du rock'n'roll que des réponses à quoi vous attendre. Là. Un peu à l'Asperger, je vais dire, oh boy, vous allez vous tourner de 360 degrés bien vite. Bon, c'est ça. Exact. Fait que... c'est ça qui est ça. Fait que c'est ça que je vis avec. C'est ça que ça a été difficile, mais je dois remercier mon ami anonyme pour m'avoir donné là, un livre, c'est en anglais, Appreciating Asperger Syndrome. Apprécier le syndrome de l'Asperger. C'est pas une maladie mentale, c'est pas une maladie, s'il vous plaît, arrêtez ça avec ces maladies, ce n'est pas une maladie, il n'y a pas de médicaments, c'est pas une maladie. Oui, dans certaines choses, j'ai de la misère moi-même, on a de la misère, on a des difficultés dans certaines choses, du social, on peut être vulnérable, même dans ces livres-là, là, ça m'a ouvert les yeux, j'ai dit, waouh, moi je peux être vraiment vulnérable dans certaines choses à cause de ces différences où je comprends pas les choses, les enjeux sociaux, je comprends pas ces choses-là, ça vient... Je les comprends pas, ces choses-là. On les comprend pas. Nous, ça devient difficile. Il faut nous le dire. Tu comprends, tu es en danger. C'est des gens qui t'aiment pas. Je veux pas le savoir. Vous comprenez? Des choses de même. Je veux pas le savoir. Les choses sociales, là, les intentions, tu comprends? Moi, il faut me le dire. Je t'aime pas à face. Va-t'en. C'est correct. Je vais m'en aller. Je vais m'en aller libre. Venez pas me faire violence, par exemple. J'aime pas ça. Je suis hyper vigilant, tu sais. Je vais me défendre. Je vais être capable de me défendre. Je déteste la violence. J'aime pas ça. Je l'ai vécu. J'ai plein de cicatrices. Mais je suis hyper vigilant. Fait que, mais je vais vous défendre. S'il y aurait une invasion, ça serait moi quand même qui aurais vous défendre parce que moi-même, en tant qu'analyste intéressé en géopolitique, j'ai dû étudier la stratégie militaire. La stratégie militaire. C'est stratégie militaire, puis même que je m'en souviens pas, j'ai une perte de mémoire, peut-être, comment j'ai dit à cause de la cas, mais à cause d'autres choses, le trompe peut-être, mais j'ai une lettre de recommandation, je voulais aller au collège militaire Kingston. Fait que ça veut dire que j'ai toujours eu l'Asperger puis l'intérêt pour la géopolitique. Fait que là, je vous présente sur la table la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Fait que la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, il va falloir qu'on fasse l'implémentation, car aujourd'hui, on vit un stress financier. Les gens, ils ont un surendettement. Les cartes de crédit, un surendettement, les cartes de crédit. Les gens du Québec, du Canada, puis la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation au Canada et aux États-Unis ensemble. Fait que c'est pour ça que je vous dis, bien sûr, que cette théorie de bipolaire, pas être confondue avec la situation bipolaire psychiatrique et de psychologie, là, ça n'a rien à voir avec la psychologie, la psychiatrie, ma stratégie bipolaire pour la fusion pour Imperial du collectif Amérique du Nord via la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, pour la sécurité, service et défense et la domination et dominion bénévole par l'empire de cette fusion du Canada et des États-Unis et la TRD que je vous l'explique. Fait que on n'a pas le choix parce que les prix n'arrêtent pas d'augmenter. Ça augmente à tous les jours, les prix de la vie, le coût de la vie. Les salaires stagnent, un double problème. Les loyers augmentent, un troisième problème. Et le quatrième problème, même maintenant, il y en a qui vont avec leur carte de crédit, tu sais. Ils vont puis ils font avec leur carte de crédit. Ils dépensent avec les cartes de crédit. Fait qu'il y a une augmentation, bien sûr, des cartes de crédit, bien sûr, qui s'en font de la dépense. Qui dépensent, bien sûr, leur carte de crédit. Ça veut dire qu'il y a ce surendettement vis-à-vis le coût de la vie. Fait que la TRD, je vous l'explique, on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, mon 10 000, ton 10 000 de côte à côte. Moi, j'ai pas de carte de crédit, j'ai une dette de 10 000 $ à la Banque Royale. Toute cette dette-là, on va faire la conversion dans la devise des États-Unis, on va rajouter avec la devise des États-Unis. Parce qu'il faut qu'on fasse la théorie de la refusion de la dette qui inclut la théorie d'intégration monétaire, c'est la théorie que les Européens ont fait de l'implémentation dans les années 90. Les Allemands, les Italiens, les Français, bien sûr, les Belges, ils ont détruit leur banque centrale. Ils ont fait la création d'une banque centrale commune. Fait que la création d'une banque centrale, commune, bien sûr qu'ils ont fait cette banque centrale commune pour en mettre en circulation l'euro, bien sûr, qu'ils ont fait ensemble. Fait que ça contient cette théorie, ma théorie. Fait qu'on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, mon 10 000, ton 10 000, son 10 000. Tout cet argent-là, on va faire la création, bien sûr, avec. On va faire la refusion. On va mettre tout ça ensemble avec la dette publique-privée des États-Unis. Toute cette dette publique-privée. Et c'est beau, ça. Toute la dette publique privée du Canada des États-Unis, la dette publique privée canadienne, on va faire la conversion dans la devise des États-Unis, on va faire l'addition avec la dette publique privée des États-Unis. Cet argent-là, ça a fondé une nouvelle banque. Comment qu'on la nomme, ça ne dérange pas, mais on va faire pareil qu'en Europe, mais à cause de cette réalité du 20e siècle, on va faire par la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Fait qu'on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, toute cette dette-là, publique-privée, on va faire la refusion, bien sûr. On va faire la refusion de toute la dette publique-privée, bien sûr. On va faire la création de cette nouvelle monnaie, bien sûr. On va faire la création de cette nouvelle monnaie. Et bien sûr, dans cette nouvelle monnaie, bien sûr, on va l'appeler l'UI. U point unité, point échange, point universel. U point unité, point échange universel. L'unité d'échange universel. U point unité, point échange universel. UI. U point unité, point échange universel. L'unité d'échange universelle. Fait que toute cette monnaie, bien sûr, on va faire la création de cette unité d'échange UI qui aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. On va mettre un taux d'intérêt de 10%, d'un 10%, d'un 10%. Fait qu'avec cet argent-là, on va rebâtir l'infrastructure du collectif, on va bâtir les 44 tunnels dans le cas d'une terre nucléaire. Dans le cas d'une guerre nucléaire, on va bâtir ça. On va faire toute la dette publique-privée, on va la convertir dans la devise des États-Unis. Cet argent-là, on va mettre ensemble. On va faire cette refusion. Avec cet argent-là, on va rebâtir l'infrastructure du Québec, du Canada, bâtir les 44 tunnels dans le cas d'une guerre thermonucléaire. Et bien sûr, on va faire, bien sûr, le grand compromis impérial qu'on va faire pour la fusion de la République et bien sûr du compromis, bien sûr, dans la convergence. Et bien sûr, on va faire la création de 2 institutions de partenariat public-privé. L'armée du dragon, soit la Légion de sécurité puis de services et de défense, intégrée avec toutes les institutions qui existent pour la sécurité puis les services et de défense. Puis ça prend bien sûr un partenariat public-privé à travers le Canada et les États-Unis parce que la TRD, ma théorie de la refusion de la dette, qui inclut encore une fois la théorie d'intégration monétaire, ça contient la théorie d'intégration monétaire est intégrée dans ma TRD, je veux dire. Dans ma TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, est intégrée la théorie d'intégration monétaire, c'est qui est la théorie que les Européens ont fait l'implémentation dans les années 90. dans les années 90. Fait que bien sûr, on va faire la création de cette nouvelle banque, cette nouvelle monnaie, on va mettre un taux d'intérêt de 10%, on va bâtir plus de centrales Hydro-Québec, bâtir plus des ponts, on va rebâtir l'infrastructure. On va bâtir ces 44 tunnels dans le cadre d'une guerre thermonucléaire, 44 tunnels à travers le Québec, le Canada, les États-Unis. On va financer la création de l'armée de la déesse qui danse, ce soit la Ligue de danse intégrée, Imperial de l'Amérique du Nord, pour l'éducation environnementale, l'action environnementale. On va faire un gros partenariat public-privé avec toutes les institutions de technologie, de public et de privé du gouvernement. Ces deux institutions-là, on va financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, parce que ça fait du bien pour la santé et le moral. On va accréditer des UI. On ne se souviendra pas parce qu'en anglais, c'est pareil. U point, unité, A point, échange point universel. UI. Donc, l'unité d'échange universelle aura la même valeur que le dollar des États-Unis. On va mettre bien sûr la même valeur des dollars des États-Unis. On va faire la création de l'UI, U point unité, point échange universel. On va mettre ce taux d'intérêt de 10%. Avec cet argent-là, bien sûr, on va financer le tourisme à travers l'Empire pour établir un esprit de corps solide, parce que moi, ça m'a aidé à sortir de ma dépression. C'est quelque chose que les Aspergers, nous, on souffre beaucoup. La dépression, c'est 9 fois plus élevé chez nous, chez ma communauté d'Aspergers, ainsi que le taux de sans-emploi de 80%, c'est inacceptable. Fait que prêtez allégeance les gens, soyez des amis avec bénéfice, soutenez mon rêve, que le royaume de la déesse et du dragon qui danse pour l'Empire, votre dragon en arc-en-ciel qui vous chante. Et c'est bien sûr quelque chose que je vous encourage à faire, bien sûr, dans ce point de compromis et de concordance qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui. Prêtez allégeance les gens, on s'en va vers la droite et vers la gauche, ensemble, pour les cadences, un bon entraînement physique. Je vous embrasse.